Don't miss Good American Family.
We have a little girl here for adoption. She has dwarfism.
Starring Ellen Pompeo and Mark Duplass.
Something is off.
She's just a little girl. You think she's faking?
She has adult teeth. There are signs of puberty.
Inspired by the shocking stories that tore a family apart.
I don't know what's going on.
How old are you? You should get a lawyer.
You have no idea how those people hurt this girl.
The Hulu original series, Good American Family. New episodes Wednesdays, streaming on Hulu.
Bombas makes the most comfortable socks, underwear, and T-shirts.
Warning, Bombas are so absurdly comfortable you may throw out all your other clothes.
Sorry, do we legally have to say that?
No, this is just how I talk, and I really love my Bombas.
They do feel that good. And they do good, too. One item purchased equals one item donated.
To feel good and do good, go to bombas.com/Wondery and use code WONDERY for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com/Wondery and use code WONDERY at checkout.
You better not have no plans tonight.
Movie time and it's feeling right.
You're looking for a love that lasts. You'll find it at Romancing the Podcast. Ooh, ooh, baby, you had me at hello. Ooh, I love you.
I know.
Ooh, ooh, baby, you're the wind beneath my wings. Ooh, ah, I'll have what she's having.
Thank you for tuning into Romancing the Pod. You had us at hello. I'm Paige Wesley.
And I'm Todd Schlosser, and joining us today is Eli Bosnick.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Eli, welcome to Romancing the Pod. We haven't had you on this podcast yet.
I know. I'm so excited. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited. We're thrilled to have you back.
Yes.
I feel like you brought me on this movie on purpose.
I did.
You brought your most sexually perverted friend on this podcast to talk about how monogamy is a problem, exclusively about this movie, about how monogamy is a problem.
I did not expect that to be the way this was going to go, but I'm so thrilled. Let's go.
Not only monogamy, also mahogany. Guys,
Yeah.
like both are a problem in this movie.
How dare you talk about Diana Ross like that?
Cucked by God, the romance film.
Billy D. Williams is a vision in that movie, Paige.
Thank you.
It's incredible.
I've got gay friends. It's fine. I've seen it.
Yeah.
So thrilled. First of all, how dare you make me watch this so soon to losing my city to wildfire?
Paige, I literally wrote in my notes, I hope this does not trigger Paige, especially at the end. It's
Very triggering.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's not just that, because it's the controlled burns we used to do but don't do anymore.
And can't.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like we showed Paige, her house just burned down, and we showed her a movie about how her dad used to check all the smoke alarms once a month. But then Daddy got to drinking.
Well, here's the part that got me the most is like when they were trying to work on our fires, there was only like 2 planes that could dump the way that we like needed it to. And this movie has like 6. And I'm like, God damn it. Like what we could have used.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, as we learned from this movie, 99% of the pilots who operate these planes are suicidal assholes.
Yeah.
Are desperately trying to die.
I mean, I thought Holly Hunter was going to end herself at the end like 3 different times in that final flight.
She absolutely tries to kill herself.
100.
Yes, 100%.
There are several moments where she looks into the camera and she's like, I'm out.
Yeah.
Let's go.
We should say we watched the 1989 Steven Spielberg masterpiece, Always.
Masterpiece is strong, but okay.
Can I just tell you, I was so happy to revisit this because this is a movie I watched a lot as a child because my dad loved this movie.
Oh, no.
And man, does that give me some sad insight.
Yeah.
But like, man, I really enjoyed watching this today because it's insane. And I think based on Holly Hunter's like filmography, if you were dating Holly Hunter in a movie in the 80s, you were way hitting out of your league because she's always like way hotter than the guy she's with. And her and Richard Dreyfuss is a weird,
Richard Dreyfuss in this movie at all is weird. Is weird.
Richard Dreyfuss.
I did not see her really into him. When she ends up with Ted, I'm like, that makes sense.
That makes sense.
For the younger listeners in the audience, you have to understand that from 1982 until 1989, we decided that the leads in our romantic comedies were Billy Crystal and Richard Dreyfuss. Your dad's friend going through a bad divorce was what 1980 wanted a bite of.
I know. And I'm like, just give me Michael Biehn, please.
Sure.
But it's like your Richard Dreyfus's that made Tom Hanks the hunk of the 80s. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I kind of got why Tom Hanks has that really hot vibe in the 80s because Slim Pickens in the dude market.
Comparison, Richard Dreyfuss.
But I understand Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks has Guy Next Door hot, especially in the late 80s, early 90s, 100%. I watched Saving Private Ryan the other day. I was like, I get it.
Sure.
Richard Dreyfuss, what are we doing here? What are we doing here?
You know how they do those restitution things at Nuremberg where they just do they're like, these interviews are just for history, and they get these genociders to explain well, the village wasn't on fire, but I wanted it to be. That's what I need for whoever cast Richard Dreyfuss.
I was in the back. All I heard was yodeling.
Yeah, exactly, yes.
I guarantee you that casting director would just be like, hey, I was just following orders.
Here's who I want to question more than that. Because this movie is a screenwriting nightmare. This is one of the worst paced movies we've ever done on this show.
It's great, right?
The motivations for any character are completely unclear. The movie doesn't know who its hero is or who its story is about. And I was like, the fuck is going on in this movie? And then literally the first slide of credits after the movie ends is for the writers. And there are 6. There's one screenwriter. Then it's based on another screenplay. And then there's 2 story by credits. And then there's an adaptation credit. And I was like, oh, too many cooks in the kitchen. That is 100% what happened.
I want a diagram of who was not speaking to whomst by the time this got made.
Oh my God. That's the only answer because this movie is a disaster.
Yeah.
This is so nuts. When you said Steven Spielberg, because I had forgotten that was the case, I was like, there's a reason this is not talked about when we talk about Steven Spielberg, because this is a mess.
I mean, but you have big hitters in this movie, though. Richard Dreyfuss is a huge actor. John Goodman is in this. Audrey Hepburn, this is her last movie. Keith David's in this movie. So, you have a lot of big... I guess my point is, I think they thought it was good when they were, about to film this and then filmed this. And then they were like, oh, this isn't great.
Yeah.
Well, people making bad movies always think it's good.
Yeah.
I talked to somebody the other day who worked on Don't Worry, Darling, and they were like, we knew it was good, but we also knew that she was fucking everybody. And I was like, okay, all right.
Yeah, we're putting the pieces together.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I mean, amazing in the worst kind of way. This is every bad 80s movie trope. It wants to be Top Gun. It wants to be Backdraft. It wants to be all of it.
Yeah.
And it does none of it right.
Yes. Whenever you hear that old statistic about 50% of marriages end in divorce, this is the generation that was true of, and this movie is why I get it.
Yes. Right. Because that statistic has not been true in a long time, actually.
It's not true anymore. But if you watch this movie and you think Richard Dreyfuss is anything but a serial abuser and sociopath, I want you to know all of your exes have written a letter to you with their therapist. They might not have sent it, but they wrote the letter.
I kept watching it and I was like, he's so consummately unlikable.
Yeah.
I don't understand. I don't understand. And here's the thing, not that Ted is way more likable, but at least a little bit.
He appears to be fond of her.
Sure, that's baseline.
Right, yeah. Richard Dreyfuss they don't really seem to like each other all that much, although Holly Hunter is doing a great job, I will say, acting, because
I know, her performance is phenomenal.
Yeah, she's opposite Richard Dreyfuss. And so, she's not really into him, but she seems into him at the beginning. He seems to, not like her that much.
Well, the movie wants him to be fucking Deadpool. The movie wants a Ryan Reynolds snarky commenting on everything or whatever, which we put up with from Ryan Reynolds because he looks that way.
Yeah.
But we wouldn't if he didn't.
I don't know, man. After Richard Dreyfuss dies in this movie, if he had broken the fourth wall and like looked at us like Jim from The Office every now and then, I might have liked him more. Like
I'd have been in. But he's Deadpool as written by your homophobic uncle. Right? Because none of his jokes are jokes. They're just like, fuck you.
They're just mean.
He spends the first third of his afterlife just roasting people.
Yes, but not with any punchline. Like,
no.
That's a substantial source of my income right now is writing roast jokes for people. And I was like, this needed a punch up.
No, you really need to work on this, buddy. I get where you're coming from, but you really, please do the work.
It is like he spends the first third of his afterlife just pulling pranks on John Goodman, kind of.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, but pranks that like hurt people's lives. And then once he realizes that that's what happens when he like does things, he's like, well, I have that information and I'm not going to do anything about it.
No, I'm not going to.
Yeah.
He's just the same thing. The dynamic between him and Holly Hunter when he's alive. It's so interesting because you talked about the bad writing, and the bad writing here is so essential because they talk to each other as the establishing banter of a good couple in a modern movie.
Yes.
But it never slips out into the fact that they love each other, right?
Right.
So if you were to establish sassy best friend couple who actually love each other quite a bit, they would talk for about 2 lines the way Richard Dreyfuss and Holly Hunter talk to each other. And then he'd be like, you know I love you. Here's your diamonds.
Yes.
But instead, he's just like, fuck you. And she's like, fuck you. And he's like, fuck you. And that is the movie.
I bought you a dress, you whore. Like... He's like so mean to her. He throws her dress across the whatever.
He throws her birthday gift across the room.
He got her birthday wrong. And they want me to think that like he's a great boyfriend or whatever. He's terrible.
He's awful.
Like I get why my mom wanted a divorce, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I mean, does this just make you think that your dad was just like pining for your mom the whole time and you're just like, Dad, no.
No, not really. But he did like say stuff like, you have a face for radio, like it was a joke. So, like, I mean, he did have some Dreyfuss vibes. You know what I'm saying?
There you go. Yeah.
I've said that about myself in a roast battle one time because somebody made a joke about me having podcasts and I was like, I have a face for radio. No, I have a voice for radio and a face for even quieter radio. And like, but that's not something you should say to a loved one. I would never say that to Jake.
I was a child at the time, mind you.
Yeah, no, that's not great. But it did set you up for success. So maybe he just, believed in you.
It's true.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe he just like, maybe he was like, my son has too much confidence currently, so I gotta like undercut him and give him like some core beliefs that are negative, and then, he'll achieve more.
Especially with that sexy black eye.
I was just about to say, I was like, do we reference visual? Todd is in half drag makeup, everybody, just so you know. Todd looks, he is serving.
I do think it's hysterical that your black eye has faded into the perfect smoky eye.
It really has.
It's Sarah Huckabee Sanders wishes she could.
So much.
My left eye, and not the one from TLC, is fuckable right now. Like, it's like...
Absolutely.
It's going out for a night on the town.
Yeah.
And I got punched by a door.
Trad wife, rad wife. Like, it's... Oh, man.
But this is like an age-old retelling of that classic tale where, a pilot has to teach his coworker how to like land his ex or whatever. Oh, and he's dead, right?
Well, he's dead.
That's like an age-old tale.
Yeah,
that's like more or less what happens.
And Audrey Hepburn is God? ? No, just some sort of middle management.
I did think that there was more like religious element to it. That's one of the reasons I thought about doing this with Eli, because of your very awesome podcast, God Awful Movies.
My curse, my bane, over God Awful Movies.
Yeah, but like it does sort of try and keep it like very sort of not specific.
Yeah.
As to like what religion, what worldview kind of thing. Which I kind of thought it was funny.
But it creates its own bonkers rules
It does.
that make no sense. Yeah.
Here's my headcanon, and I want to pitch this to you guys, which is that there's one perv angel named Hap.
Yeah, okay.
Who just can't get enough cucking stuff. But it's the 80s.
Right.
And people aren't doing it enough. So they're like, hey, go down there, do Guardian Angels, right? We were thinking this guy could do his granddaughter. And they're like, Or what if, like, he just sits on the edge of the bed and he's so sad and I'm there, but I'm invisible and I'm watching the whole thing.
Hey, Peter, what if we, by the way, St. Peter, what if we, like, made it so he couldn't get into heaven until he found a new guy to fuck his wife while he sat in the corner? Like,
great idea. I'm loving this.
What if that was like a stipulation? I love how Peter's like, I'm on board. Let's do it.
I know we aren't letting people touch the living. You know, they're just sort of doing the influence thing. Can we make an exception for eating the cum out of his wife's pussy? Is that something? I asked if we could swear before the pod.
You did. I gave you permission. Man.
I'm only laughing because it was funny.
I mean, it was. But I pictured it and the mustache, and it got stuck in the mustache. And now I'm upset.
We're going to need a bigger dental dam.
Because I've spoken to this several times over on God Awful Movies. The acting credit that should go to the women, to the main actresses of the 80s for managing to act like they were attracted to fucking Richard Dreyfuss is truly phenomenal. Like, don't give me Marriage Story. Yeah, yeah, Marriage Story. It's so good, right? I'm not interested in Megalopolis. Holly Hunter convincingly portrays someone who wants to fuck a man 6 feet shorter than her. He comes up to her ankle. He should be giving her guides to his mushroom kingdom, and she's like, yummers.
Especially next to Ted, where she's like, I'm not sure about Ted. I was like, are we really not sure about Ted?
When she stands up to dance with him and she comes up to like middle of his chest.
Oh, yes.
Like, you know, she was just like, fucking finally.
Good.
Like,
Richard Dreyfuss joins behind them and he's just at her knee height, snuggling the back of her knees.
Yeah, like a toddler.
Yeah, holding on to her ankle. They're fucking the run button.
But then he's also just mean to her. I'm like, how you got the right to be a whole person shorter than this woman, wearing weird vests and half-zipped windbreakers that are the same color as your pants, and then be mean?
Yeah.
Like, come on now.
I did think it was funny that the movie I thought she should wait a year before moving on from her abusive, like, Evel Knievel pilot ex-boyfriend.
Which is weird, because when he was alive, there were poly vibes, right? When they were alive, they were like, let's all get together and fuck her at this dance.
Thank you, right? She dances with everybody. And I was like, this would be strange.
She's like the only woman there. But I did think that was, if they weren't like poly, a little weird, right?
Even if they are poly, the movie doesn't set that up or explain that because 80s.
Right.
But like, I got the impression, tell me if I'm wrong, that he was only there occasionally flying for stuff and she was there all the time. So it was just whoever was in town. That's what I thought.
Catch as catch can, yeah.
Right?
I love that.
Here's the thing, because that dance scene is exactly how you let someone know this is a fuck situation
Right?
without making it weird, right? Everyone starts dancing with each other so that person can go, well, I better call an Uber.
Right.
Or fuck everybody else in the room.
Right. Or stay and have a good time.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Well, and then everyone seems to know what to do. Also, that dance scene goes on for a full 10 and a half or so minutes of wasted screen time, unless you're trying to communicate that this is a poly situation, which the film does not understand because 80s.
I don't think it did. I think it wasn't ready.
I don't think so.
I think it wasn't ready. But you give me 30 minutes with this script and a nudity clause.
That's what's up.
And we make this the poly epic it deserves.
It's just Caligula with planes.
Yes,
Don't worry about it.
It needs to be, yes.
I love plain Ligula.
Plain Ligula. I started thinking, because I often think, I'm like, okay, I'm the writer. I'm doing a pass on this. Because like I'm also in the middle with my script of doing like pacing passes and final trims for stuff. So like I'm thinking in that vein and I'm like, I don't even know where I'd fucking start with this movie. I'd be like, not make it? I don't know.
Yeah, stop.
I mean, this is one of those like weird premises that like I kind of want to know. I want to be there in the moment. The person who had the idea that became this movie, I want to know what that idea was in that moment. Because there's no way it was this. Like, I think they were like, what if we made a badass, like, war-style movie about, like, bombing fires? And someone else was like, all right, Steven Spielberg liked the idea, but he wants to add a spiritual 3, like, love triangle romance to it. And the guy was like, fuck, I'll figure it out.
I can work with that.
I do know that the original script, because here's another weird thing. Usually when a film is an adaptation, it's like an adaptation of a book or a TV show or something like that. This was an adaptation of another script that never got made. And that script was just called A Guy Named Joe, which, like, I can't think of a worse script title. It tells me nothing.
Yeah. Tells you why it didn't get made is the pretty much
tells
the
you why
only
it didn't
thing.
get made. And I have to assume that A Guy Named Joe is just the died and come back part. And that Top Gun was popular. And so they were like, layer that on top or whatever. Or Steven Spielberg hadn't finished Backdraft yet, because Backdraft is Spielberg as well, right?
No.
He just was like scratching the surface. It was like, we can't get Kurt Russell. We're going to have to get Richard Dreyfuss. And that's how this movie happened? I don't know.
Backdraft comes out 2 years after this, and it was Ron Howard.
Oh, Ron Howard did Backdraft. All right, but they're friends.
There's friends.
Maybe Ron Howard saw this and was like, we could do better.
We could do better.
Give me Kurt Russell.
I love that guys are on fire sometimes. I hated everything else. Let's start from there and work forward.
Let's start with the sexiness of Richard Dreyfuss. Let's dial that up to an 11. Who is that? Kurt Russell. Absolutely.
I do think Ron Howard saw this movie and was like, all right, this is way better if you just focus on the smoke jumpers and they're all hot.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make that movie. Fuck y'all. I'm going to do it right.
Get me William Baldwin. For the younger listeners to our podcast.
What's the Godfather up to? Somebody find the Godfather.
Donald Sutherland. Where's that dynasty of acting that can really terminate it, sweet, sweet Donald?
Before we get into going through it scene by scene, I do have one final question, and that is, did anyone else realize that they've been eating a Twinkie wrong while watching this?
Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Because I did. I thought you just bit into them. I didn't realize you could stick a straw in them and suck out the center first.
And drink the cream?
Yeah.
Like it's your wife's cum-filled pussy? Yeah, I was not aware of that.
Oh, man. When Richard Dreyfuss that Twinkie, that's what they call when you eat the cum out of your wife's pussy.
Yeah.
They call it Richard Dreyfussing.
Richard Dreyfussing from now on.
When he does that to the Twinkie, oh, so funny.
It's making me Richard Dreyfuss. I could never.
I feel like there's gotta be, look, here's what I'll say. I've done a lot of weird shit. I haven't done that.
Sure.
I feel like there's gotta be the cookies are runny and they need to go back in the oven moment when you're trying to eat another person's cum out of your wife's pussy. I feel like there's gotta be like, keep it in. Like there's a silly little juggle that must happen in real reality that for me might kill the mood. Move. I think if you have to say move.
with Scooby-Doo, like, like, you know, when people run in place. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's not one that I've experienced. I can't inform you from a real life scenario. I don't know.
Guys, can I if the porn parody version of this that's just a cuck kind of movie, we could bookend her dancing with, I'm going to say this seriously because I mean it, with him eating the cum out. And so like Richard Dreyfuss is dancing with Holly Hunter, right?
Right.
And Ted walks up and is like, can I break in? Right? And then we see Richard Dreyfuss do that after Ted finishes and his wife, he walks up and taps him, do you mind if I break in?
Do you mind if I defrost this cake?
Guys, from a story circle perspective, it works, Paige. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying I would want to be there when they film it or watch it.
Not disagreeing with you.
It's sound. It's structurally sound.
Do you mind if I top off this cream of mushroom soup?
Mind if I go this Gert? Here's my actual pitch for how to fix this movie.
Paige, I just fixed it. We just talked about it. What are we talking about?
Dollar in the idea jar, Paige.
Guys,
Fun.
I am turning down offers from Ron Howard to redo this movie already.
To eat cum out of his wife's pussy.
It's weird that he's asking you, but the heart wants what it wants.
Whenever anyone makes the mistake of letting me on their podcast, I imagine a first-time listener who was like, oh, hun, we like romantic movies. This is one where they do romance. Oh, you love always. No, she's always saying we gotta try a pie, and I'm like, and then the fucking mushroom soup comes spilling over your beard. Dear Paige and Todd, never have him back.
We've already had you on Horror Virgin. We wanted you on this.
That's true. Yeah, no, it's fair.
We knew.
And I stand by it.
Okay, the person I would say with some of the most emotionally grounded performances in this film is John Goodman.
He's so good.
Yes.
So good in this movie.
I didn't realize he was this good in the 80s. Like, I've seen him do stuff in like the 2000s that has been amazing.
He's so fucking good on Gemstones.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I thought he like came to it late, but no, this dude was always great.
And so likable and so sweet and cares about Holly Hunter so much.
Yeah.
He should be the one.
He should absolutely be the one.
He should be the one falling in love with her.
Yes, agreed.
And the idea that there's this other dude that we have to meet that doesn't really, that has some chemistry or whatever, as opposed to your two friends finding love and caring about each other even though they still miss you. Like, I think that they didn't do that because it's John Goodman and they're afraid to let
a fat guy,
a big, thick man with a wonderful, vulnerable performance.
Yeah, no, fat men did not have penises until 1997.
Until Shallow Hal, technically.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, God, we've not done Shallow Hal. That's one that I'm going to scream.
You haven't done Shallow Hal?
No.
I can't scream that much. I'll lose my voice.
So I do have like a film overview class,
right?
And that's called about it's about intersectionality, right?
Oh, great, yes.
And so I just show them problematic movies that aren't like horrible and triggering. And one of the first ones I show them is Shallow Hal, and I'm like, let's be in conversation with this. And my students are like, burn it all?
Yeah.
Burn down everything older than 3 years old.
I find that movie intensely triggering.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Just like this movie, but for different reasons.
Yeah. I just mean I don't show them like Unforgiven. I'm not like, all right, kids, for homework.
Oh, yeah, no, of course.
Jodie Foster in a pinball machine. Get to it, kids. I see you on Monday.
Oh my God, Eli.
Yeah.
I made an insane purchase the other day, and I feel like you might appreciate this, but I am the proud owner of an original John Hinckley painting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Me and a handful of comics, we all found out that he sells them, and so we've just like each been saving up and buying one, and we each have different ones.
Phenomenal.
So I have one of his cat series. And then my friend Greg Roquet has one of a lady. It doesn't say it's Jodie Foster, so we're not going to say it is, but she has giant blue tits.
Yes.
And then my friend Keith has one that's just a screaming face that you're like, this is the madness at work.
I get it, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the face that wants to shoot Ronald Reagan right there.
Yeah, that
Go
did.
for it, baby.
That did shoot Ronald Reagan.
You could smell the trickle down all over it.
I wish Luigi would start painting or
He has sex tapes, and I want to find them so bad.
Trust me, I looked into it so hard.
I've been looking for days.
No, me and my fellow Fangionis would love a painting or something to buy. I would have,
yes,
dude. And it's just, he needs to start producing. Can I say, man needs a podcast. Okay.
Oh my God.
And this is the room that is ready to make that podcast day one when he is declared innocent for that crime.
I would 100% do that.
100%. Like I'll bring a mic to him being declared innocent. That's the opening.
What was the one that's in prison? Ear Hustle? Is that still going?
Yeah, Ear Hustle still going. Yeah.
Ear Hustle still going? I was like, where are the Ear Hustle guys? Like, get in there.
Get in there, guys.
It's a shame he's in so much trouble. He was with me that day.
Yeah. I was hanging out with him that whole day. We were all there together.
Yeah.
We were there that morning, and we never go to McDonald's because of the boycott. So, like, it couldn't have been us.
Couldn't have been us. Strict vegetarians.
I've never heard of McDonald's. Would you guys like to go through the movie always scene by scene, perchance?
Yes.
I would. It's important to me.
Great.
Let's do it.
We open on them, two men in a fishing boat and a plane flying down to gather water from the lake. However, the men don't turn to acknowledge that plane until it is feet from their boat.
4 seconds from their boat.
Which, first of all, is madness. You would hear it. It would be deafening.
Yeah.
But then the plane, like, scoops, and it's implied that it, like, pulls up and they dump out of the fishing boat before the plane flies over them.
Right.
But that's not what we see on screen. We cut away. So in my mind, they got picked up.
Yeah, they're just like holding on to the fuselage of the plane.
They got scooped up and dropped onto a California.
And dropped into a wildfire.
Yeah, just speared through a tree. Where's Pop Pop? And just, he went fishing and he never came back.
They like dropped that water load and there's like a legit like boat and two guys just falling down onto the fire.
Just speared onto a tree, yeah. Hap shows up next to him and was like, sorry, man, I don't see a place for you to jerk off to another guy fucking at this point, so.
We could have gotten a Temple of Doom style raft down a mountain with those two guys in a boat.
Would have loved that. I would have been down for that as well.
Hey, Spielberg, where were we on that one?
Welcome.
They would never have anyone in the Indiana Jones movie use the whip to, like, I don't know, swing from tree to tree like George of the Jungle. That would never happen in an Indiana Jones movie. You're crazy.
All this cuck talk, I thought you were going to say something way more exciting with the whip, but no.
Oh, I was just making a joke because they absolutely do that.
They did that, and he hid in a fridge too, but also, could he have used it sexually?
I love
Yes.
Island of the Crystal Skull because the fridge makes the most sense.
No.
And the rest of the movie is just bonkers. Like, it is a B Indiana Jones movie that got like $300 million budget or whatever. It's great.
In that movie, the fridge is the thing that makes the most sense.
Yes,
but that's a low bar.
It is. That's what I'm saying. That's why I like it. You guys are like, Indiana Jones makes great movies. Yes, some of them. Some of them are hilarious.
I refuse to acknowledge that the last two exist.
Yeah, much like we don't acknowledge the last 30 years of Richard Dreyfuss's life, we don't acknowledge the Crystal Skull happened. Crystal Skull is like the prequels in that, like, as a comedian, I grew up taking the easy jokes about those movies, but now kids don't hate them the way I hate them.
Right.
So I'm just a weird old man who's like, fucking yoga. And they're like, hey, relax. Are you okay? And I'm like, you're supposed to hate what I hate, kids. And they're like, I don't know. I thought it was all right. And I'm like, no. Just turning into dust.
The funny thing about that is, for like our parents' generation, what they were mad about us not hating was like racism and stuff. They were like, why aren't you more racist? And now we're like, why did this younger generation not like hate Star Wars as much as me? I just think we're going in the right direction generationally is all I'm saying.
We wanted them to be racist against Jar Jar Binks and they refused.
Right. Oh, people gonna be kind? Fuck that. Hate a Jar Jar.
For the younger people listening to the podcast, I swear he talked like that. Don't cancel Todd. Don't cancel Todd.
Everyone on his planet did, including Boss Nass, which is the craziest name ever. And it's, you got to be using the boomer Jar Jar. And I'm like, that is the actual line from the movie.
Yep.
No notes.
None.
And yes, the fact that they were like, they didn't love these racist stereotypes.
Oh, man. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, they didn't love the Trade Federation, the thinly veiled Trade Federation. Anyway. So we cut to the opening where John Goodman and Richard Dreyfuss are flying and fighting fires, and they're talking with the air traffic controller, which I realize right now is a very old, outdated sentence.
Yeah, no.
Remember when that job existed?
It wasn't always catch as catch can at the old airport.
Yes. But Richard Dreyfuss is running out of fuel, and he's like, I just got to go get this one tree. I got to do one more drop. But as he comes back around and he's flown too far out, he is out of fuel and literally has to glide down to the airfield. They have to run the alarm. They have to pull out the emergency stuff. It very much is that, like, certain death.
Yeah.
To be honest, the windsock is flaccid and unappealing.
That was my question. I admit, and look, let me be radically vulnerable.
Sure.
I know so little about planes, it would terrify a kindergartner to their core.
Right.
But I don't think you can glide in a plane when the engines aren't working.
That's what gliding is. Gliding is flying without the engines.
Without the engines.
Yeah.
The only reason I know this is because I listened to almost every single episode of Black Box Down.
Sure. Yeah.
Which is a podcast about plane crashes. And so, like, this has happened multiple times where people have successfully landed planes in this way. So I know that you can.
Incredible.
But it is very, very risky and very hard to do. And it takes a very, very talented pilot to do it. And it works better on a small plane than a large plane to do it.
Yeah, because it's lighter.
Right.
Which is why when the wind is like not blowing at all, he's getting fucked by,
the wind is flaccid.
Yeah, he's falling faster than he needs to be able to make the airstrip or whatever. And then Holly Hunter like walks out and looks at it really sternly, and she like makes the wind blow, so it's giving him a crosswind, and he's able to like sort of drift on that and not lose altitude as fast as he was. So he's able to make it barely.
She gets the wind hard.
Yeah,
yeah.
She gives it that Holly Hunter look, and that wind gets super hard.
Yeah, I get it.
She turns that windsock from 6 to midnight.
Yeah.
There you go. But he does land successfully. Now, this whole sequence takes a solid 15 plus minutes
Yeah.
of screen time. And the whole time, because you've seen the trailer. We all watched the Bonkers trailer. And so you're like, he's going to die. This is how he dies, right?
Oh, and literally every person who has a serious conversation with Richard Dreyfuss before he dies, that serious conversation is, bro, you got to stop being a fucking idiot or you're gonna die. And he's just like, if it's my time, it's my time. I'm going to be reckless as fuck.
I've seen the trailer. You're going to die.
Yeah. Listen, man, I talked to Steven. He says you're going to die.
Audrey Hepburn is here.
And they call her Hap.
Hap.
It makes me so mad they call her Hap when they could call her Hep, which is her actual like shortened last name.
But then they would have to not release this until she had died.
Yes.
And then be
Oh my
like,
God.
she came back for this.
She died 4 years after this. She died in 93, I think.
I think, yeah, she needed the 4 years to regret being in this movie and
Yeah.
that she was ready to move on.
Oh, absolutely.
Watch Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Was certain parts of Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's fair.
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
fair.
yeah.
Not all of it.
Yeah.
Do you show that in your intersectionality class?
I show that scene, and I also show the 7 faces of some the Paul
yeah.
the Lemon one where he's like 7 different Asian characters, each
Yes.
more offensive than the last. It's amazing.
Yes.
You know what movie you should consider for that and perhaps already use is 7 Brides for 7 Brothers?
Oh, 7 Brides for 7
Ooh,
Brothers.
7 Brides. Yes, phenomenal.
Yeah.
We've done that on this show, and you think you know all of the parts that are bad. You don't. You forget some.
You don't. I haven't seen that movie for years, so I bet there's some goodies in there I've forgotten.
One of the banger songs is him singing about his future wife like she's a cow.
Well, and then the second banger of a song is about them. Yeah, let's go kidnap those
Oh,
girls.
yeah. Dude,
Yes,
the barn
yeah.
scene is the best, like, song for sure. Yeah.
The kidnapping is what I was remembering as you were mentioning it. Yeah, that's
You weren't remembering "Bless Your Beautiful Hide" wherever.
I was not remembering that.
He literally got her home that night and tried to tan her ass. But Paige, we got to move on. We can't talk about this the whole time.
I mean, and Eli's already watched Redeeming Love, so he's seen the worst of
Oh, I've watched Redeeming Love. Hell yeah, baby. When Todd was like, do you want to come on? I was like, I have 97 Christian romance movies for you, each more terrifying than the last.
Oh my God, so many. We just came off a string of Tyler Perry movies. So.
Ooh, yeah.
We wanted to do something that was the opposite of that.
Did you have AIDS counters in the top right of the screen so that people could just bing, bing, bing?
No, we've done that one though. Temptation: Confessions of a Marriage Counselor. That's one of my favorites.
More people get AIDS in that than Rent.
Yeah, 100%. AIDS is the only bad thing Tyler Perry knows about.
Well, no, it's AIDS and abuse, AIDS and domestic abuse.
Yeah.
And it's always the woman's fault somehow.
Talk about writers' rooms I would love to be in. I just want, look, I promise not to say anything. I just want to be in the room when I see people write even if it's just Tyler. I just want to watch the words grace the page.
You know, there is a writer's room in his house that just says writer's room, and it's just a room that's for him.
That's this room in my house.
It's a women's bathroom sign and then the word AIDS, and he just arranges them on a page.
Anyway, Richard Dreyfuss lives, and you're like, the fuck was that 15 minutes about?
Mm-hmm.
It took 15 minutes to set up that he's like a risk taker pilot and Holly Hunter loves him for some reason.
Right. And I'm like, didn't Top Gun do this in 2 minutes? Like, come on. Even new Top Gun did it in like 2 minutes.
But Paige, Top Gun hadn't come out for 4 years before this yet. Paige, like they should have done this way better. You're right.
Yeah.
Like I do think if you edit this movie tighter and make John Goodman the second love interest, maybe, and which would save you a lot of time in that editing process, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to hire that extra weird actor. It's great for everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
And like, I do think that would be a good movie. Like, I do kind of like some of the themes of the movie, like how grief affects you and how it's okay to move on and you like coming to grips with that. But the way they do this in like a machismo sort of like shitty dad kind of a way makes me sad. I want a good version of this, I think.
Yeah. I do think the good version of this, John Goodman, is your love interest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, they even set up that she's like not into super hot guys.
Yeah.
Clearly not. She saw Richard Dreyfuss from across the bar, like from a bunch of like oiled up hot mechanics, and was like, no, I want to fuck the dude that looks like my father.
I want to fuck this Paul Simon lookalike. Yeah, let's go.
If Richard Dreyfuss walked up to me in a bar and said, "You're the reason I'm here," I'd be like, "Oh, you're my taxi driver. Okay, cool. Yeah, let's
Good. The Uber's outside? All right, sure.
I'm not here for a geometry lesson. I don't know why."
If he came up to me and said, "You're the reason I'm here," I would worry that he thought I was Jaws.
Yeah.
Right.
Or one of his many political enemies.
Yeah. Or that he's an undercover cop doing the worst. Like,
Yes.
I'm just going through my Rolodex of what the fuck Richard Dreyfuss was in outside of this.
He's just wearing a t-shirt over his police uniform very visibly. And he's like, "Do you know where I can get some narcotics? Preferably Schedule 1, but I'll take Schedule 2.
right.
I'm only here because you're an alien and I want to see you again.
Oh, God.
Sorry, those are the only movies I know Richard Dreyfuss was in. I'm sorry. We did Mr. Holland's Opus, Close Encounters, Jaws.
We got there. We got through.
We got the hits.
God, can we talk? I would spend the rest of this podcast talking about how the way they thought they should show that Richard Dreyfuss's kid is deaf in Mr. Holland's Opus is he bangs a bunch of pots behind the baby and it doesn't go like, "Oh!"
A man who like has access to a million musical instruments and a radio, because that's what he's hearing, right? Mm-hmm. And like, you don't need to like scare your child. Yeah, he's terrible. Also, his wife in that movie is Glenn Headley. So like, he has just like a murderer's row of marrying women or being a romantic lead opposite women that are way hotter than him.
Way hotter than him every time.
And he's just making their lives a living hell. Because in this scene, Holly Hunter like literally matrixes a spoon out of stress.
Yes. She just stress bends a spoon.
I was like, is she psychic? That's going to be an even like a weirder layer on this movie.
I love that twist. Yes. I want to help my telekinetic girlfriend love again.
She's just sitting in the air traffic thing and it's like bending.
She's mind bending the cum out of her pussy and directly into the funnel. It swirls through the air like storm.
Just be like, the dishwasher's clean. Just grab anything out of there. Oh, man. Anyway, he lands. He's fine. But as he lands, a delivery plane lands and brings her a birthday present because he got her birthday wrong.
I want to point out that this is like Richard Dreyfuss called him in with this like delivery because this is the dress.
Right.
He's bringing the dress, right?
Right.
So like we see him with it. You don't realize this until like later, but like Richard Dreyfuss called him.
Yeah.
And like put him in the position to fall in love with his girlfriend instantly, which like red flag. But like I think it's interesting that like they, as from a screenwriting standpoint, made Richard Dreyfuss the reason he is here.
Right.
To fall in love with her like this. I kind of like that from a like screenwriting perspective.
What services does Todd offer? He does gift delivery.
Yes.
Happy birthday's written on the plane.
Right.
He has multitude of balloons. He's got balloons on the plane. He comes holding balloons. I just feel like that was a perfect section of the telephone book situation where he was like, I want to do something nice for my broad's birthday, you know, something with an airplane because we can't talk about anything but fucking airplanes in this movie. But, you know, oh, look at this. Here's a guy who's got happy birthday written on his plane. I guess he's useful once a fucking year for everybody.
Do you also do Christmas? No,
I'd have to repaint the plane.
It would make sense if he was like a skywriter and he also did like happy birthday deliveries or whatever, because like the skywriting, you can't really see what the words on the plane say, but you can like do skywriting and spell out, you know, fucking will you marry me, Nadine or whatever. And then like,
I would have loved to see him get fired for spelling something wrong. That's something I don't think I've seen in a movie that I really desperately want now that we've mentioned it.
He actually just got fired from the NFL because he skywrote "Let's Go Chefs" above the Super Bowl. So yeah, it was a bad night for him. Holly Hunter's still pissed.
One guy in a big white hat is like, I cannot do this.
But I'll tell you what, in Kansas City, they had the best Italian that night.
Meatballs.
Honestly, it was inspired. I'm sorry.
So good. But this is also where she then steals a plane and goes and flies it badly to like show him. And I was like, this is the most toxic couple ever.
It is like Okay, so Richard Dreyfuss is an asshole to his girlfriend, Holly Hunter, and it literally brings out the worst person Holly Hunter can even be.
True.
Because she's like, well, you're going to put your life in danger? I'm going to go put my life in danger to show you how it feels. And listen, don't do that. That's a terrible idea.
Yeah.
This is my punch up on this film, which is that I think this film needed one sane person who works at the airport.
Yes.
Just one person who's like, hey, sorry, guys, like, it's actually really dangerous for you to crash a plane, like, for everybody involved. So I understand you guys are doing a weird fuck thing, but if you could do it in, like, go-karts or bicycles or just run around the woods crashing into each other. I can't describe the scores of humans you're going to kill with your dynamic.
I also want to point out that, like, Richard Dreyfuss is doing this incredibly dangerous flying around firefighters on the ground. So if he crashes, it doesn't just kill him, probably. It very realistically could kill like a, I don't know, squadron? I don't know what you call the smoke jumpers, but like a bunch of those guys.
They don't have a ton of those planes that do the water thing.
Right.
So every time you crash your plane that does the water thing, there's less help for the firefighters.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm just saying Richard Dreyfuss is an asshole to Holly Hunter and incredibly selfish because he like has thrill-seeking issues. Like, I think he was in Nam and he murdered villages of people and he just cannot feel that rush anymore.
He can't feel as good as he felt in My Lie. Yeah.
And now he has to put himself in danger every day. Like, it's an insane level of like risk-taking that he puts himself in.
Yeah, it's how I feel having been on the original Twitter. It's just like I'm constantly seeking that level of vitriol.
I can't wait to yell down at the generations younger than us like, I remember when Twitter wasn't a cesspool.
You kids with your mastodons and your blue skies. In my day,
You weren't there when they posted full-ass porn on Twitter.
I was friends with Tom. I was close personal friends. Top 10 friends he was. That's all. We've already aged ourselves.
Yep.
Half the people listening to this are like, who's Tom? Everyone used to be friends with Mark Zuckerberg and he took the money and went, like the hero we needed.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to be honest. Like, I think I might sue Tom from MySpace because I was one of his friends and I didn't get any of the 580 million he made.
You didn't get a piece? You didn't get a little piece?
Tom, we were so close.
That close.
You were my first friend on that platform.
You were the reason I learned CSS and HTML.
That is so true. Fuck you for being in my life. That's so funny.
That's the reason I still know color codes.
I know.
Is because of MySpace.
Every coder of our generation started with MySpace, and anyone who says otherwise is a fucking liar.
Yes, 100%.
Oh my God. Eli, did you have IRC chat?
Oh, of course. Are you kidding?
God damn, you fucking nerd. I love you so much right now.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what episode did IRC chat come up on? It was the Tyler Perry was obsessed because he had the inter-office chat.
Yeah, I was obsessed. Yeah, because they more or less use IRC chat in that movie.
When HTML3 hit and you could do motion graphics right into the build.
Eli.
Not a person's name held still for a moment. And I just felt ancient because I realized we're on 5 now. So I'm gonna turn into a skeleton like I drank from the wrong cup.
From a good Indiana Jones movie.
In the good Indiana Jones movie, yes. In Last Crusade, that's the one, Last Crusade.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Anyway.
We are on the second scene of this movie.
I know. That's typically what we do.
But we are 20 minutes in. 20 minutes in.
That's true.
Because they then retire to what I will only describe as the local poly bar.
The swingers club of the area.
It really is like Holly Hunter is the only one in town who currently carries a vagina.
Yeah.
And because of that, everybody wants a piece. It felt to me like she was the only woman in prison, if that makes sense.
Yes, but dark. But this movie has dark undertones.
Yes, no, but like every guy there sort of feels, this sounds insane, but if you saw the movie, no one asks her to dance. They just like walk up and assume she'll dance with them. So it feels like they all feel some sort of ownership over her, which I thought was insane. Like nobody respects her body autonomy at all. Although she also seems fine with that. And that's sort of what gave me the vibe of, oh, this is like a rotating thing, kind of, maybe.
Right.
Because she seems to be very happy to dance with everybody.
And she, like, opens the present, turns out to be a dress, which she calls girl clothes.
Right. And they fight for, like, 10 minutes, it seems, before the dress reveal, and this is when we're supposed to feel like they love each other.
But they never stop fighting.
Yeah.
No, I know. That's what I'm saying.
A competent screenwriter would be like, oh, the dress, and they'd kiss each other, and he'd be like, do you really like it, hon? And she'd be like, I love it, right? And that's sloppy and bad in its own way, but instead she's like, girl clothes, and then she changes into their girl clothes, and she's like, hey, fuck you, and he's like, fuck you. The dynamic never breaks.
It doesn't.
Yes, it keeps going. They all dance with her, although the last person to dance with her is John Goodman, and it's actually very, very sweet because he like lifts her up and swings her around. That's what I'm saying. He should be the love interest. The movie doesn't know what it's doing.
I mean, I'll say this, like Holly Hunter and Al, which is John Goodman's character, like they do love each other. They very clearly love each other. They're very close friends.
Yes.
And like I love their relationship in this moment already. I think it's a logical conclusion of like if their best friend died, literally both their best friends died, they would sort of come together and support each other in that grief, and sometimes love blossoms out of that. And that movie would be interesting.
Yes.
We don't get that movie. So it really is just Richard Dreyfuss trying to cuck himself with a hotter version of himself.
Trying not to cuck himself. I wish he was enthusiastically cucking himself.
That is
that
true.
That movie'd be great.
Yeah.
Where he's just like, no, you got to do the alphabet with your tongue, dude. That movie I want to watch all day, every day.
Don't forget to tongue punch. Well, shit. Don't forget to tongue punch the fart box.
Yes.
Todd, I told you to do your tongue punch the fart box warm-ups before we started potting today.
Guys, if you really want a vocal warm-up to do before a podcast, it is tongue punch the fart box.
Tongue punch the fart box.
Just say it a lot. Say it like Shakespeare wrote it.
Tongue punch the fart box. And my voice and speech teacher said I didn't have any potential.
Mine said the same thing. He was like, you sound like a radio DJ on speed. And I was like, isn't that just describing a normal person on double speed?
Yeah.
To be fair, that was most of me in college, was just a radio DJ very much on speed. Yeah. Never stop doing speed, kids. That's what I'm really want you to take home today.
Guys, stimulants are great if they're prescribed.
They're great, and just don't ever stop doing them, or not prescribed. Buy them from a guy at a bar. What I'm saying is don't stop.
Well, I didn't say who could prescribe them. That guy at the bar might be a street side pharmacist. Who knows?
Yeah, Dr. Cocaine.
Honestly, it's my favorite Motley Crue song.
You're the bus, and you cannot go below 55 miles an hour.
Yes.
Anyway, while she's changing into girl clothes, John Goodman, I'm trying to get through this movie.
Sorry, you're the bus, and your heart rate cannot go below 55 beats per minute.
Yes.
Sorry.
Or you end up a suburban dad in New Jersey.
You ever watch rom-coms and think, wait a minute, this guy's actually a full-blown villain? Take Love Actually. We've seen the scene where Andrew Lincoln shows up at Keira Knightley's door with cue cards professing his love, even though she literally married his best friend like yesterday. But let's rewind a bit. How did he get all that secretly recorded footage of her face? Was that a wedding highlight reel or a surveillance operation? If Keira Knightley had NordVPN, she could have protected her online privacy, avoided unwanted cyberstalking, and maybe even put a little password protection on her wedding footage. Because seriously, how did he even get that? Oh wait, he was the videographer. That's what it is. Either way, that's why NordVPN is the real MVP of the modern romance. Here's the deal. NordVPN encrypts your internet connection so no one, not hackers, not your internet provider, and definitely not your husband's weirdly intense friend, can snoop on what you're doing online. And with 7,100 plus servers in 118 countries, you can change your virtual location with a single click, which means yes, you can finally watch that obscure rom-com movie that only seems to be available on like BritBox or whatever. And here's where it gets even better. One NordVPN account protects up to 10 devices. So whether you're scrolling through dating app horror stories, streaming rom-coms, or panic searching, what are the legal consequences of confessing your love via cue cards to a married woman? NordVPN's got you covered. So do yourself a favor. Go to nordvpn.com/romancingthepod and use the promo code romancingthepod, all one word, for an exclusive deal. That's nordvpn.com/romancingthepod to protect your data, to unlock your content, and stay safe from creepy dudes with signs on the street. Paige, are you ready to optimize your nutrition this year? Factor has chef-made gourmet meals that are making eating well easy. They're dietitian approved and ready to heat and eat in 2 minutes. You can fuel right and feel great no matter what life throws at you. Factor can help you feel your best all day long with wholesome smoothies, breakfasts, and grab-and-go snacks. And honestly, there's a lot of more add-ons too. That are great. You should check them out. They're pretty great. They have like 40 options across I think it's 8 Dietary preferences, don't fact check me on that. It's something like that, though. But you can check on their menu each week. It's easy to pick meals tailored to your goals because you can choose from things like Calorie Smart or Keto, or I think they have a Protein Plus one too. And the best thing is Factor arrives fresh and fully prepared, which is perfect for any like active, super busy lifestyle, which is why it's so great for me. So eat smart with Factor by getting started at factormeals.com/factorpodcast and use code FACTORPODCAST to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's like half off your first box and free shipping, guys. That's code FACTORPODCAST at factormeals.com/factorpodcast to get 50% off plus free shipping off your first box. Do it.
But John Goodman basically pulls Richard Dreyfuss aside and is like, you look too much like Paul Simon to be doing this kind of shit.
Yeah. And he's like, listen, you can call me Al, but you cannot continue to be Evel Knievel, all right?
Yeah.
Right. And he's like, there's a job where you would teach people to do what you do. You're one of the best people at it, but it wouldn't be dangerous. You and Holly Hunter could settle down. And he's basically just like, fuck y'all.
Absolutely not.
He's like, settle down. I'm not a day below 55.
I'm a 77-year-old buck, and I gotta be out there endangering the lives of firefighters, myself, and everybody at this airport with my unnecessary shenanigans.
I'm a 77-year-old buck who's just looking to get cut.
Now, if you excuse me, I'm gonna go do a backflip off the bar if I can.
And then I'm gonna watch every man in here dance with my lady.
Dance with my girl. Slower, Richardson.
Well, and every time he's like, yeah, you are my girl. I was like, ugh.
At the end, he says it as well, and then he's like, and my boy. I was like,
no.
All right, he's about to go watch.
I fucking loved that. That was the moment where the movie opened to my side of the fucking jungle. When he was like, and that's my girl. If he had just slowly unzipped and been like, then this is my favorite movie.
Yeah.
Then I'm sitting here, tears running down my cheeks, just being like, you guys don't get it. You guys don't get it.
If it had a remember me cuck reveal, like remember me level cuck reveal, oh my God. And then Audrey Hepburn over his shoulder like, use the force, Dreyfuss.
Just DJ diddling it to him, skiddity squanking it.
Oh my God.
Oh, I was a Nazi spy. She was an anti-Nazi spy. Which, to be fair, is absolutely cheating, because if a young Audrey Hepburn was like government secrets, I'd be like, yeah, sure, let me see what I got on my laptop.
I know.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's like, no, I don't want to do that. But this is where everyone dances with her, even after they drink beer in champagne glasses, which I was like, first of all, why do they have champagne glasses at this place? And they have like champagne coupes, like not flutes.
For bits. It's for bits only, apparently.
Well, that's the name of the bar. Bits only.
Bits only.
Show us your bits. Nobody is anybody's only.
Show us your big old bitties. I'm going to start a like retro themed bar called Bits Only.
Bits Only.
We're going to do trivia night. We're going to have 80s game, like arcade style games. It's going to be great.
Yes. But they're all secretly tasers, so when you go to play Space Invader, it shocks you and the screen just says, call your kids.
And then it says, bits only.
Bits only. Richard Dreyfuss comes out and talks for 11 problematic minutes about trans people.
Oh, jeez.
You know we would.
Are you guys aware of that? Do you know that that's what he does now?
I had forgotten that happens, and you're right.
They drag him out of his coffin every 8 years because we love Jaws, and it's impossible to remember Richard Dreyfuss exists unless you're looking at him. He's the Colin Jost of old guys.
Oh, boo. But yeah, okay.
Oh, really? Really? Pick Colin Jost out of a lineup page. I'll give you all my money.
The problem with Colin Jost is he sits next to Michael Che.
Yeah.
Who are you going to focus on?
You accidentally pointed to the white wall behind him. I think it's that one. I think that wall is married to Scarlett Johansson. The beards were subtler in old Hollywood. Can I say that? They were subtler.
Yes.
Who are you married to? I don't know. This fucking guy. He's great. I love him. Yummy.
Oh, God. Anyway, yes. So Richard Dreyfuss, trash person.
Yeah, trash person. Oh, yeah. If you're not aware, podcast listener, every 4 years they dig up his corpse, and his corpse just says the wildest shit at a Jaws talkback.
Yes.
They pitch him the softest of balls. They'll be like, are sharks scary? And he's like, trans people are ruining sports. And they're like, okay, well, Thanks for coming, everyone. Make sure to get your DVD copy.
You know, trans people got 3 rows of teeth. It ain't natural.
They turned the frogs gay, and that's how the Ninja Turtles done sucked each other off on that cartoon I found in my email.
And that's not America.
American treasured Richard Dreyfuss, everybody. Well, I'll be burning down the theater and killing all the reporters who were here.
For the record, it was so bad when he said the venue apologized.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I remember that.
The venue apologized, and the press didn't report on it. They were just like, trust us, he said some shitty shit.
Yeah. We don't need to say it again.
An actor of that generation saying something bad about trans people does not at all surprise me, honestly. It's almost not newsworthy at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is sad. I'm not saying that's a good thing, but yeah, it's a bad thing.
It's a bad thing. But yeah, no, it's expected. I like it when one of them turns out to be chill.
Yes.
And it's always one you don't expect, right?
Correct.
It'll just be Fabio will come out and be like, trans women are women. And you're like, fuck yeah, Fabio.
All right, Fabio.
Nice.
It's because that dove knocked some sense into him.
Yes.
That goose.
Was it a goose? I couldn't remember. Whatever bird had hit him in the face as he was riding that roller coaster.
It was a goose because I was at that theme park the week after it happened.
Feathers were still falling from the sky.
All anybody can talk about. And then I do remember at the face painting station, they did geese, but fancy.
Wait, exploded geese or normal geese?
No, like glittery.
Oh, okay. Because if it was exploded geese, that's an entrepreneur who should be the president of the United States. The face painter who came in the next day and was like, guys, I'll do an exploded goose on your face for $26. That person, theirs should be in charge of the Doge. I want them firing random employees.
I think it was someone who was being subversive and was like, it's a swan. There's glitter on it. Wink.
You think that goose died? That goose died, right?
Oh, the goose definitely died, yeah.
100% died. They executed it in Tennessee.
You broke Fabio's nose. You're dead.
It got the electric chair.
They had to try it twice. But that roller coaster was built through their natural flight path.
Right.
Because nobody did the research. And that's how it happened. So it could have happened to anybody, but it happened to happen to Fabio.
It did.
Yeah.
Speaking of bird strikes, let's get back to this airplane movie.
Let's do it because they spent another 15 minutes talking and then another 10 minutes dancing. At which point they go back to Holly Hunter's house. Because again, it felt like he was just in town to fight fires and then he would leave and she would pick another mechanic.
Right.
Or something. But I do also love that John Goodman does a West Side Story dance for his last dance. That's very fun.
Yeah.
Yep.
But they end up at their her weird apartment where she has a bed right next to the fireplace.
It's like a medieval hunting lodge. It's like a one-room medieval hunting lodge where she lives.
Yeah, it's an Airbnb that sounds fun in theory, but actually fucking sucks.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be one of those things like in movies where people have sex on the floor in front of fires, and then they pull back to reveal there's a full queen bed next to that fire.
Taking up 98% of the room, yeah.
Yes, and they basically just argue. They just get in an argument where she's just like, hey, I don't want to be on the ground waiting for you to die. That is what this will be. I don't want us to be, hey, maybe if I'm also flying, we both have to wait on the ground for each other to die. Or you go teach this thing. I will go be your girlfriend because I won't have to wait on the ground for you to die anymore. And he's just like, God, quit being a bitch.
I know. He's like, she is like, okay, I will stop flying and be your full-time girlfriend / wife or whatever if you take a safer job.
Right.
And he's just like, stop being controlling. My life is great. Fuck you. He's terrible.
Yeah. Well, and it's again, talking about the poor writing, because she's like, either we end this or you end flying. And he's like, then I guess the answer is no. And I'm like, okay, little drama. This is about them about to break up and maybe he's going to die and he never solves it. 4 sentences later, he's like, hey, I have an idea. What if I stop flying and join that flight school?
I know, right? Don't you love the way he, as a joke, makes it his idea? I was like, fuck you, Richard. God damn, you're so mean.
Yeah.
But that's that generation to me. That felt very true to the dudes I knew from that are my dad's age.
That were your dad. That feels very true to the dudes that raised me as my father.
Yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, his friends too. It wasn't just my dad that was terrible in the 80s or 90s. I don't really know him much in the 80s, but.
Yeah. But literally no sooner have they been great, love, that the phone rings and they're like, you got to come in on your day off. And he's like, well, one last ride.
I did think it was so obvious that he was going to die when the moment he decided to stop being so reckless and get a fucking day job and marry this awesome woman who was like lowered her station to marry an uggo like me. The fire called him on the phone and was like, hey, I'm starting up again. You got to come die real quick.
Like a jealous ex.
Yes.
I was outside the door. You don't want to do one last fire?
I'm so hot and ready for you, Richard.
Oh, your plane's so wet.
I'll let you drop a load all over me.
This movie is hypersexual. I can't believe people didn't realize it in the 80s.
Yeah. There's a lot of like sexual puns that they're like yelling. I mean, at one point someone's yelling, pull out, and the smoke jumpers are yelling, oh my God, it's so wet. Go for the wet spots. And it made me laugh. I was like, I'm a 14-year-old forever, I guess.
The finale of this movie is just an action sequence of innuendo.
Yes, it is.
But of course, he goes to the fire and he and John Goodman are trying to fight it, but John Goodman's engine catches on fire, so he flies above him and dumps his load on it to put the engine out.
Yes, there is a scene in this movie where Richard Dreyfuss drops a load on his friend John Goodman. And I want to point out, John Goodman was about to die. Like, Richard Dreyfuss makes a very selfless decision and saves his friend and dies because of it. So he does have, like, I think, a very honorable death.
Right.
But he's still a bad person. And I want to, like, keep pointing out that he's sort of a bad person because it ruins the rest of the movie for me.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, this movie and Great Santini and a bunch of those movies, they always redeemed their shitty characters with like one last airplane thing.
Yes.
Right. They would just do one good airplane thing and they'd be like, that's it, you're good.
Yep. Well, and that's what this movie does, because he then literally like looks at his engine and is like, huh, and then it explodes.
Yes.
Because the movie really believes him to be a charming comedic lead, even though he's not.
The only moment of this movie I appreciated is when he turns to the engine and he's like, ain't I a stinker? God give me the courage to die that bitterly.
Yes.
Yes.
To be like, I'm
going to die like this.
Oh, if you could do shave and a haircut, but not 2 bits.
Yes, exactly.
And then shit yourself in 2 bits as you die. That's the dream.
Perfect.
It's the fucking dream.
You leave 2 bits behind, just like Elvis.
Exactly.
Oh, there was probably more than 2. That guy's diet was abhorrent.
Too soon for Paige. She's a big Elvis fan.
She wanted that sandwich.
I'm not, but I have been to Graceland, though. It's one of the craziest places I've ever been.
I live 3 hours away most of my life. Never been. No interest.
It's so fucking nuts.
Oh, you gotta go to Graceland.
I would go with Paige.
Yeah.
I have no interest by myself.
That's fine.
It would be lost. Like, if Natalie wanted to go, I'd go. But, like, I have no interest.
You have to go because it's like if Christians, the first Christians, lived right now. Right? So they were just like, you remember how you like, I die for the Lord, and like the ichthos symbol and all that fucking shit, which must have been so weird to just walk around and be like, oh God, it's the fucking Christians. They're like, this guy, we really liked him. It's that, but about a guy who stole 100% of his music.
Well, and not just that, it's not just about him, because the part that really got me, because first of all, the man had insane taste in furniture and decor,
and sandwiches.
And witnessing it is so fucking worth it. And sandwiches, they sell replicas of his shirts in the gift shop. My dad bought them. He was like, do these make me look gay? And I'm like, of course, but he had already purchased them. And like, you walk around, he's got his lightning bolts all over everything. It's fucking nuts. But then you get to the end.
Karate stuff?
Yeah, his karate stuff. You get to the end where it's his grave, and right next to it is his brother who died in utero. Like, he had a twin brother that didn't survive the birth.
Yeah, Belvis. Everyone knows about Belvis, Paige.
Everyone knows about Belvis.
Elvis. Fetus Elvis.
And people stop and cry over that grave, where I'm like, I already think this level of fandom is absurd for the man who lived and accomplished a lot of things.
Yeah.
This person, never. You didn't know them. You have no emotional connection. And it's so wild. And I don't know if you've watched Kings of Tupelo on Netflix.
No.
Watch it. Paige and I watched it. We did a whole bonus episode on it for the Horror Virgin Patreon. Yeah.
This is a gift for you, Eli. This is a gift.
It's nuts.
And I'm not spoiling anything because this is like the first 5 minutes of the fucking movie. two brothers, Elvis impersonators together, but they decide they want to perform at the same time together and get the same gig. So they perform as Double Trouble, which is what if Elvis's dead twin had lived and then they went on to be a brother act and then they do Elvis covers. That's the beginning.
So it's Elvis and Felvis, fetus Elvis.
Yeah.
Now fully grown on stage performing.
Right.
And one of them ruins it because he doesn't know what you might find in a morgue.
Why were we surprised when Donald Trump was elected president?
I wasn't, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Just me.
No, Kings of Tupelo is one of those things where you're like, oh, the schools are really bad. Like way worse than we thought.
Yeah.
Schools are bad.
Yeah, the average American has a double-digit IQ. Okay, let's get it.
You guys have IQs? Okay.
You guys are getting IQs?
Okay. All right. I'll Google that.
Here's the weird thing. That's the least weird thing about that documentary. It gets so much weirder. Like, that's where we start.
You gotta watch it, Eli.
I'm excited.
I legit want you to watch it and tell me what you think because it's insane.
It's insane. My favorite part about it, though, is their mom, who is a very elderly woman, is they're like interviewing her, and she's just like, I just want two things before I die. I want to go to Graceland, and I want to see Double Trouble perform again. And then I Googled where she was, because it's in Tupelo, Mississippi, to Graceland. And it was an hour drive. It was like 90 minutes.
Fuck yeah.
And I was like, girl, this is an achievable dream.
Get in there, girl.
Just get in there.
It's like an $80 Uber. I'll Venmo you.
I know, right?
Yeah, I'm like, or there's got to be a bus. But yeah, Tupelo. Kings of Tupelo. Anyway, so he dies.
Yeah.
And wakes up in the forest with Audrey Hepburn and is not immediately like, oh, this is heaven.
No. I do like her technique of putting a barber's apron on him.
Yes.
Because at first I thought that was an absolutely batshit choice for this movie to make. But I will say, if you put a barber apron on me, no matter what I am going through, I would feel too awkward to cry. So that's a really good move on God's part, right? Because he probably deals with a lot of people being like, no, I had so much to do. My family. Put the barber thing on them and they're like, oh, okay, cool. So what are you up to?
If it was me, I'd be like, thank you for this cry, bib. I'm going to sob now.
Yeah, but you cry at the barbers too, Todd. I've been there.
I do. Guys, I have separation anxiety for my hairs.
It's true. It's true. He names them as they fall off his head.
It takes a while.
Anyway, he's like, okay, so I'm dead. So I just go win her back. Like, you put me back in, coach. And she's like, no. And also it's been 6 months. And he's like, what? And then he's like, well, take me back to her. She's like, no, you have to live on to then inspire the next generation of flyers, which, like, I like the idea that the people who came before you that do the things that you did,
I really like this
speak
too.
that inspiration into
Yes.
you. I do like that weird mythology.
Yes, because it speaks to like sort of the eternal progression of things. And I'll use a really terrible example, but John Bonham was an amazing drummer in the 60s. Dude was the best of the best. He died too soon, but he inspired shitloads of drummers who are now way better than he ever was, right?
Right.
And so like, if he had become their like drumming spirit guide and like, I sort of liked how the inspiration of you can impact those that are coming up behind you. And I thought that was cool.
Who's your dead podcaster behind you? Who do you think?
For me, I could tell you who it is.
Do you think we have radio DJs or do you think they refuse and we only get podcasters?
I know who it is for me.
Who is it for you?
Well, they're not dead, but it's Paul F. Tompkins and Jason Mantzoukas.
Those people are very much alive.
I know. They're not dead. Yeah, but like those are the people who like inspired me to do this.
Mine's Kill Tony, and I'm just manifesting that he does.
How dare you? How dare you? Do you know how many people I had to fucking talk to after that motherfucker showed up at a Trump rally where people were like, don't you know this guy? And I'm like, yes, unfortunately. Shit.
Yeah, it's the worst part of my day. Thanks for catching. Being a roast comedian in 2024 would be like if you were a juggler and then Hitler was like, and here's Mr. Peoples, the club juggler. And you're like, this is not in my wheelhouse to discuss. Yeah, man, his clubs are okay. Wow.
Oh,
Fuck. Who books that?
How much they paying though?
Who books Republican National Convention?
When it first popped up, if you could, because most of the people I interact with directly online are comedians. the amount of who books that was like, oh. And it is like, for those of you who are not comedians, who might not be familiar with this, the joke is that we're so desperate for gigs all the time that you see someone with a bad gig and you ask them how they got it. So it is a fun parlance that we participate in online of who books that. When I tell you that we got a new one after that Donnell Rawlings video hit, and now every time I post anything for Roast Anything, there's just a bunch of comments of, where's Donnell? It's the new who books that for me.
It's everything. And let me tell you something, radically vulnerable podcast listener. If you don't think every comedian you know is like, I could have done a good 10, I could have done a I wouldn't have done any racist stuff. I would have kept it clean. I could have done it. Everyone you know thinks they could have killed 10.
Here's the thing. Do I think I could have killed 10? Yes. Would I kill 10? No. Absolutely not.
They might not have, but they all feel like they could have.
I know I could have, but I wouldn't. I couldn't live with myself after. But Tony, different breed.
Tony, it's a different breed, different kind of survival. The Roaches and Tony out there.
Just driving a Corvette with a license plate that says I roast. That kind of...
There, but before the grace of non-existent God go we.
Look, they paint murals of that guy in Austin.
They sure do.
Sure do. But he does look like the Joker in that mural. So like,
he does.
You know.
He does.
Anyway, so he asks her to keep the sideburns for this weird haircut. Bad choice.
Bad choice. Terrible choice.
Yeah.
Anyway, she then is like, let me introduce you to the pilot. And then he's like, okay, so she's been over for 6 months. She's like, no, 5 months. You're not listening. I was like, I'm not listening. What the fuck is happening? She never explains it.
Well, she says that like time works different for us, but like I thought that was like an Inception not Inception, but like Interstellar, where like it moves faster or whatever, but it seems to like jump around too. Like what?
Yeah, it just seems to jump around.
When we come back to her life, it's been like 5 or 6 months for her, right?
Right.
And then later it's been a year, and they do sort of like time stamp it when it's like a new time.
3 days later, it's been a year.
Yeah. For him, yeah.
Yep. But we cut to Flat Rock Training Base, where John Goodman is training new pilots, including Birthday Boy. And I do love that Marg Helgenberger is kind of the Holly Hunter of this like thing, but she's woefully incompetent. And she just walks up and it's like the school for men and women. And she just goes, I'm the women. And I was like, oh, Marg, your early days were dark.
I love her in this. And I do think Ted should have like been into her.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with her.
I think it's great that we have a failed attempt at being the airport jizz jar in this movie. She's just like, hey, so the training manual says everybody fucks me. I don't know what that means.
I didn't pick a song yet. Do you think that's it? What if I pick a song that everyone should know, but they don't because you were banking on this being an 80s banger and then it never was?
What if I dress up like I'm about to pour blood on Carrie? Does that do it? I don't really understand.
We can't afford the rights to a Righteous Brothers song. What are we gonna do?
She should have spent less time trying to get dick and more time trying to fix that renegade follow me go-kart thing.
It's true. Oh, Days X go-kart?
Yeah. That is very clearly remote controlled. Like that thing is driving. It like takes surface streets. That is like Elon Musk's self-driving vehicle in the flesh right there. Someone figured it out in the 80s.
There is a Mushroom Cloud-esque beauty to screenwriting so sloppy that there has to be a car that drives us to the next point of the plot that just like, there's that car. It's like when there's a dog that always connects the romantic lead to the other romantic, and just runs over and is like, meet cute now. That's the level of beauty we're experiencing in this film.
Yes.
Absolutely. But he goes to meet John Goodman. They get motor oil everywhere. They light things on fire. It's bad. It's Tommy Boy levels of fumbled. And he mixed up Burbank and Van Nuys. Very hard to mix up. Yeah. Two very different size airports.
Feels like a person who has never been to the state of California.
Which is wild if you want to be a professional firefighter in the air. Like you're going to go to California
all the time.
You're going to be taken off from either JFK or Buffalo International. I am not sure which.
Well, and okay, so Burbank and Van Nuys, first and foremost, are within miles of each other. Like they're very, very close. Van Nuys is a tiny private airport, Burbank is like most towns that have an airport in the United States. It's that.
Right.
It's our small airport because the other option is the hellscape that is Los Angeles International. And so the idea that you would mix those up, nearly impossible. Anyway, so Ted, not super smart. He's not cut out for the firefighting life.
I do love that, like, Richard Dreyfuss is influencing him as he's, like, trying his first day of training school, and he gets him to dump his load all over John Goodman, which is the second time John Goodman has had a dude drop a load on him in this movie.
Yeah.
I know. Well, and this is where because here's the other thing about the mythology of this movie is that Richard Dreyfuss's character can influence other people too. Because in this scene, he's like, give him a chance, Al. And it's like, then Al's like, I'll give you a chance. And so it's like, so you can influence everyone.
Yeah.
Right.
Literally everyone. What is...
Well, that's what Hap says. Like, you don't waste your spirit life or whatever on, like, doing shit for yourself.
No, he's too busy roasting to use his powers for good.
Right.
For 90% of the film.
Right. You know, like Tony Hitchcock.
Exactly. It all comes full circle.
I'm not super familiar with him just because, like, I've been successful, so I haven't had to.
You've only had consensual sex?
Well, no, because I've been successful, so I haven't had to go right. You know, I haven't had to, like, placate to the right. So, like.
Okay. Some of us are struggling in this economy, okay, Todd?
I'm not gonna go right. I'm gonna go to OnlyFans and finally give the people what they want. And like
There
if it
you
gets
go.
that bad. Be like, it's just me eating burgers, pay me money.
I'm going to sell feet pics on Only Talons.
Ooh, I'd like to psychologically shatter, right? I think that's sort of the best comedian out at this point in history, which is just you have a big meltdown while Paige tries to turn invisible in the background.
God damn it. While I try to like, this is the second story that has happened to me where I'm like, I would have Alex Macked into the floor if I could. And the first one was the one that we talked about before we were recording where somebody just said, oh, are you still here? To someone near me, not even to me. And like, but that Donnell Rawlings video, I would have loved to have just sunk through the floor and not been there. That would have been great.
You've never seen a woman try harder to use one of her 3 wishes than Paige trying to vanish from behind a psychic event.
My favorite part is when I told you that video existed, you're like, oh, I've seen that video. Wait a second. And then you went to watch it and you were like, good Lord, you're right there the whole time.
There you are.
Oh.
I did. To be fair, like I'm busy watching the towers fall. I didn't notice Building 7 shaking back and forth.
Right. You didn't notice me and Teddy Swims just exchanging glances like, what do we do?
How do we get up? We stand up and walk away.
Look, hey, I'll use this as a PSA to say, if you have a famous friend and they get too drunk in a place that has cameras, take them home.
Yeah.
Also, all the places have cameras now, just so you know.
Yeah, literally every place.
Everyone's got a camera in their pocket.
None of that is cell phone cameras. He was doing that in a room with 4 film cameras.
Hell yeah.
Set up, standing around, just literally trained on the place where he was screaming.
Mm-hmm.
And the club did not cut him off when they should have, because they still served him. He goes back and gets another drink, during the thing. And like the people running the show were so mad that he was ruining the show. They basically called it to keep all the footage and then release it. And I was just like, God, and I'm just trapped. Trapped here.
You look like a deer in headlights at some moments during that video because of what's happening.
You put on the Marx Brothers like glasses and nose. And
she like Homer Simpson's into a shrub.
Yeah. Would have loved.
Also, if you haven't done comedy after midnight, it's impossible when you're in it to tell the difference between a viral video happening 6 inches from your face and a typical night of doing comedy after midnight. That's just when the demons come out to be like, me and my husband just got divorced and we're coming to this comedy show together. Don't say the word pickle or I'll kill myself in front of you. Like, there's no way.
You have no way. And like the crowd started chanting and booing. I'm like, I can't stop the crowd from yelling Ashy Larry at you. Like, that is just what they're going to do.
You just go around and sit in the crowd and you start booing with them. I'm one of you guys. Boo. Yeah.
Boo this man. Yeah.
I will say afterwards, Teddy Swims just turned to me and was like, girl, you're so fucking cool. And I was like, oh, cool. I'm glad I got this interaction.
Good. Yeah. Hey, don't look at my chair. It's full of urine.
Yeah, right. And he's also, this is the other thing, because he is also deer in the headlights in that
Yes,
video
he
right
is,
next to
yeah.
me in a hat that says, I eat cooter.
Yeah.
It's the best. A man who looks like he should be beaten up by Bruce Willis in the proving scene of an action movie turns to you and is like, this is weird.
This is weird.
This is weird. The vibes are weird.
The vibe. And you see him do it multiple times, like look over at me and Jeff Ross and be like, what is going on? And we're like, I can't help you, man. We're all in it together. I'm so sorry.
I'm in the water also.
Yeah, we're also drowning. And I am more seats in than you, so I can't get out.
I can't get off camera. I'm leaning as hard as I can.
And I'm just covering my mouth to like, I know my face will show my feelings, and how can I avoid this? Anyway, enough about that video that I'm sure many of you have seen and are now going to rush back and be like, that is Paige in the background.
It is Paige in the background, yes.
This is where he drinks a Twinkie.
Yeah.
No notes.
Love it.
Honestly, I want to try it.
No notes. Yeah.
No notes. And then he dumps the load on John Goodman, who then is like, get away from the school. I don't want to see you.
He fires him, more or less.
He fires him.
Yeah.
And he's going to go pick up another plane. So while that's happening, they have like a party. And this is where Marg Helgenberger shoots her shot. And he's just like, nah.
Yeah.
It's real sad.
Literally, it is the, oh, you're still here conversation, because she's just like, I'll just leave.
I do like that Richard Dreyfuss is trying to like help him get in with her. And he's like, you know, talking about this one brief interaction with Holly Hunter he had. And she's like devastated, right? And then like leaves or whatever. And Richard Dreyfuss is like, I'm not familiar with this technique, where he just like, and that's because Tucker Max hadn't come out yet. But like, this is something that is going to be very popular soon.
Yeah.
Right.
He's like straight up negs her and talks about how he likes somebody else way more than you. There's no way she wouldn't be begging for his approval the second his wheels touch back down on the landing strip.
No.
It's so hard she walks out of the movie and never comes back again.
No, we see her. She still pines after him. Yeah, no, she still wants it.
It's rough.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we cut to where John Goodman has gone to pick up the plane, and who happens to be there but Dorinda, aka Holly Hunter. And they hang out at her house and watch SNL. And it did seem like there was only one bed in that place, right?
It's such a weird, this whole scene felt so out of place, right? It felt like maybe they had fucked and then they were regretting it.
Right.
Because they're lying together on the bed watching TV. But then they have this huge, deeply dramatic screaming fight about moving on from...
About her quitting? And I'm like, yeah, a guy died, man. Like,
honestly, if you had not changed anything in the scene, but John Goodman was just in his boxers, it would have made more sense. Like, it would have been like, oh, they just like fucked and feel like horrible about it.
Right.
And they're now like yelling.
Because it doesn't make sense other than that.
I mean, I do think it's very sad. Like, it is like a I miss him too kind of conversation, but you're like locked up here in this room and you can't stay locked up here in this room. You've got to like get out and experience your life again, which I like the spirit of the scene, but like it's a weird way to get to it.
Yeah, here's the thing. It's a great scene in a movie where we didn't just have a flaming cigar and a big squishy load of paint, right?
Yep.
Like, if there had been a scene in Tommy Boy where David Spade had confronted Chris Farley about his drug addiction in tears, I would have found it off-putting.
Yes. Well, and not only that, like, he just picks up and moves her. And in a movie where he then becomes the love interest, that makes more sense.
Right?
Because it's like, this is the person who stepped in to care for you.
Yeah.
And he literally does. Like, he drags her back to the flight school where she does not have a job, but gets to boss everybody around.
Oh, I thought he hired her. I thought she did have a job at the school.
Well, that lady was doing a bad job as the jizz jar, and she's really the woman who set the standard. So he was like, look, it's going to be a mentorship program.
Right.
She's going to jizz jar shadow you for 2 weeks and then
learn the techniques.
Right. This is your song. Here's a cassette. I think they try to make it seem like she has a job because he's like, oh, I've got somebody who's going to fly that plane back. She's not employed. She never goes to work until Ted is flying. And then she just bikes up to the air traffic controller thing. And they're like, technically you don't work here. Like,
that's why I thought she worked there. I thought maybe they had hired her and she was like working in the tower in the scenes we don't see her.
Right.
You know, like, because you're right. She does order on, guys, it's Keith David. She orders Keith David, who in this movie is like named Powerhouse, which I loved. And she like orders him to go leave, and he does.
Right. And like, it's almost like they all revere her, even though they shouldn't know her.
I mean, Keith David was there during like the dancing scene at the beginning, so it's implied that they do have somewhat of a friendship.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe she just says, Al wants to see you, right? So he goes to see Al, and she just offers to hold the plane for him. So maybe she doesn't order him around so much. So maybe she is just some like random lady that is being kept by the base leader who then steals a plane.
Right. Because she lives in a house that Al owns that she's renting from him.
That's what they say, yes.
That's what they say.
Yeah.
And so she ends up there. We literally we get a time jump because Ted's trying to leave, but then she flies in, and so he ends up going back. But first they end up at this abandoned airfield with an unhoused person. And then this movie posits that unhoused people are not crazy. They are just getting transmissions from, instead of being like, hey, there might be a mental health issue here.
I mean, there definitely is.
They're just picking up the radio from other people.
Yeah, to quote the film, hobos are like radio stations.
Yes, that is something the film says.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the official position of Paige. That's what she says. She's having those t-shirts.
I didn't
She
do it.
said it right now. She says, hobos are like, there's a new t-shirt. You can see it. She's holding it up to the camera right now. I don't know if you guys can see it.
I'd like to be in the background of this video wishing I wasn't here. Thanks.
Natalie.
Anyway, so Ted Baker comes back after hearing a halfway message from this man in the abandoned airfield. And he's like, I demand another chance. And John Goodman's like, what? And it's because he shows up and Dorinda's like, oh, Ted, hey, I remember you. That he's like, okay, fine, you can have another chance if it makes her happy, basically.
Yeah.
Which John Goodman does so many things just to make her happy that I'm like, please let him be the love interest.
He genuinely loves her. Like, I truly think he doesn't want anything romantic with her, but he genuinely loves her.
Yeah.
Because he sees this as like, oh, shit, you sort of got the hots for this dude. And I guess he's not that bad. So I'll rehire him or re-let him back into school. I'm not quite sure if it's like a school he's paying to be at or a job. I don't know, but like whatever.
The movie doesn't know.
Yeah.
He immediately starts to advocate for her fucking Ted. He like sees the sparks in this scene and he's like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
He sets her up to like go into town with him. That the movie spends fully 10 whole minutes of just bizarre John Wayne impressions.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Never has a John Wayne impression been funny. And it's not in this movie.
It's non-comedic actors attempting comedic impressions badly of people I don't care about.
Right.
They do like 12 impressions, all of them bad, all of them of actors I vaguely know the name of, but cannot put a face to except for John Wayne.
Right.
It's just like, more like Bridget Fonda, am I right? Hello there, welcome to my house. And I'm like, was that a thing she said? Are you just saying it?
Oh no. And at this point, I realized they had only, in this 2-hour movie, left 40 minutes for an entire love story.
Yep.
40 minutes. And I was like, this is absurd. The pacing of this movie is absurd. And this is where, as they're driving back, they encounter a school bus where this scene only exists to make Ted look cool.
Oh, yeah. Ted definitely, like, paid this guy to fake a heart attack, right? Like,
right. But then he, like, dies and talks to Richard Dreyfuss and then lives and goes back into the guy.
Yeah.
And then we just cut away from it. We don't know anything else that happened.
And we never revisit it. We never talk about it again.
Never
They just
once.
decided the way for us to like Ted, because apparently we didn't like him already, was for him to resuscitate a man.
Yeah.
Right. And then we literally cut to very next scene. She's back at her house faking a 4-course dinner that she bought and is trying to pass off as her own. Smart.
It's very Miss Doubtfire of her.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
That was too good, Paige. Can I give you that note? That was a significantly better Mrs. Doubtfire pronunciation than you had any right to
I
do.
know.
It's the only Mrs. Doubtfire could do is just hello, like, and it's Julia Child is what it is.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But her kitchen is like food fight levels of dirty.
Yeah.
After this date. Like there's like red sauce on the wall. There's like mashed potatoes everywhere. It's insane.
There's red sauce on the wall and she ain't serving pasta.
I know. It looks like blood spray, honestly.
Yeah.
Like they just didn't clean it up from the last scene they shot there.
But then she spends the entire dinner talking about Richard Dreyfuss.
Right.
Which, like, that's not going to end well for a date. But then he's like, let's get up and dance. And they like dance and make out. And Richard Dreyfuss is like, no. Don't.
Stop.
Don't.
You're mine. You're my girl. I own you.
It's my pussy. I wrote my name on it in the fridge.
I licked it. Therefore, it's mine.
I licked it. I can't believe you still want it.
Yeah, Ted.
But then her and Pete's song comes on and she's like, let's finish this another time. And I was like, boo, but fine. They at least get to make out.
They do.
And then as he leaves, he does a John Wayne impression again.
Yeah, I think the scene is sort of like, it's really sad in a way because she is like very still stuck in loving Pete and not being over Pete. And Ted can sense that. But she does kiss him. So he's like, oh, great. Maybe she is a little into me. And then the song that was her and her ex's song comes on. And she's like, Ted, I need you to leave so that I can put on a year-old dress and dance around my house strangely.
Yep. And then lay down next to a ghost.
Yeah, it's strange.
But then Richard Dreyfuss wakes up back in the forest with Audrey Hepburn and she was like, yo.
Stop being so fucking selfish. You're terrible.
Hey, I gave you instructions. It's so funny. I fucking love that he has to check back in with God? And God's like, hey man, sorry, I kind of tried to vague it. I need you to let that guy fuck your girlfriend.
Yeah. Is it okay with you if your girlfriend moves on and finds love? She's like 32. So like, can we have her find a love of her life, you selfish 78-year-old man?
But he reluctantly agrees to sit in the cuck chair. And he flies sitting behind Ted and basically teaches him all the tricks he knows.
Yes.
Okay, I have a question because the fineness of this, I don't know if you've had this experience. I am obviously an East Coast, New Yorker, New Jersey. Because I am a sex weirdo, all my friends are sex weirdos. And occasionally, if you run in sex weirdo circles, one of us will catch a normie. Just a guy named Mike who works at an office and he's just... Yeah, oh, another burlesque show. Okay, that's the way in which Richard Dreyfuss will conduct the rest of this movie. Like the office assistant manager who's married to the queer contortionist you know. Just, okay, all right. Oh, we're doing Molly. It's a Thursday.
There's always one.
There's always one, and he's the best.
The one who brings the snacks to the orgy.
Yeah, he brings the food. He's always sober to drive, which rules.
Right.
Yeah, it's the best.
Right.
And then she breaks up with him for a little while, and we're all like,
no, not Brandon. Yeah.
Not Mike. Oh, Mike had a car he owned all the way.
There's a great comedian version of this, which is the person with a normal job that like, so there's one of the comics in my friend group married a doctor.
Amazing.
And she's the one that everyone's like, you can't leave Stacy. I need a new inhaler.
Yeah. We cling to normals. There needs to be at least one normal. Because that person, they like do our they do everything. If you are the fucking Walmart employee in a group of comedians, we're like, hey man, what do you do when you've killed a guy? Like you're our person.
You need a guy who'll tell you exactly what Walmart aisle to go down if you've killed a guy.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he teaches Ted, and Ted's like unnatural. And they're like, we haven't seen anybody good since the last guy that fucked Holly Hunter. Maybe her pussy is the key.
Maybe fucking Holly Hunter is the thing. And look, everyone on this base has done it, so we could tell you.
Right.
I guess that, like, in the 80s, if you're sleeping, oh man, this is going to sound terrible, but if you're sleeping with the, like, Air Base's windsock or whatever you want to call her.
Oh no.
Like,
oh my God.
You are a risk taker, right? Like, this is in the 80s.
True.
Raw dogging with, that's risky.
So, Todd, you're saying your headcanon, your HC, she has AIDS and gives it to the rest of the base?
No, I'm just saying that, like, if she is poly and, like, banging sort of everyone on the base, you are sort of risking it.
What Todd is saying is that all poly people have AIDS. This is
That's
what I'm
not
hearing.
what I'm saying.
And if you want,
That is
you
not at
can
all
actually get
what I'm
that
saying.
and Paige's t-shirt at the same. It's a 2-for-1 bundle.
I'm just going to be over here melting into the floor. Just pretending I don't want to be here, just like.
Yeah.
I listened to like 4 episodes of this show before I came on because I was like, oh, I've been on Horror Vision. It's been a little while. I feel so terrible for your listeners. I apologize on behalf of my existence.
No, it's all good. This is what this movie needed because not much else happens.
I know.
Because
That's true.
I know.
there's a night fire and like Ted's gonna go and she's like, no, not Ted. That dick be amazing. And like she bikes there and is like, what if I steal the plane and go? And at this point I was like, the movie doesn't understand who this movie's about
At all.
because like they give her this ending scene of like she flies and he has to guide her through it and I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, but it wasn't her arc. Like she's been absent from the movie for a whole half an hour. She's kind of tangential. Like this really should be Ted and Pete finally giving up the things that Ted needs, or if in a really horrible other version of this movie, it's Holly Hunter trying to kill herself. Like, it's really horrible.
That's what I think it is. Yeah.
Right.
Well, definitely towards the end, because she goes, there's no question that this is a suicide mission for her, but then he uses his ghost powers and she survives.
Right.
And so she has to like, oh no, the boat's in the water.
Right.
And she does sort of let herself drown a little bit. Yeah.
I couldn't possibly undo my seatbelt.
But she couldn't see Richard Dreyfuss because he's dead unless she was in at least 4 feet of water.
You can see ghosts underwater, and they don't tell you that.
This is the Twilight thing of like in Twilight 2, which we have watched. Todd, I know you don't remember. It's been a long time. We will get back to it. I promise. Please stop emailing me about it. Okay. In Twilight 2.
It's called New Moon.
New Moon.
Use its Christian name.
Twilight New Moon. It's government name. Bella becomes a daredevil because when she gets close to death, that's when she can see Edward.
Right.
Which is very toxic and bad.
Which is bad, I guess, if you're into being a weirdo.
Yeah. But that's what's happening in this movie is that she's going full Twilight so she can see Richard Dreyfuss one more time.
Can you imagine? I do think that it would have been very funny if like it had cut back to like John Goodman and Ted, and he's like, I'm not worried, man. She used to bullseye womp rats from her T-16 back home. I'd laugh.
Oh, God. Stay on target.
I know.
Stay on target.
It would have been hilarious if Richard Dreyfuss was just like, use the force, Holly.
Use the force. I took points on this movie instead of getting paid and made $80 million.
Anyway, she successfully does it. She doesn't die. She gets back to the base and they don't immediately arrest her.
Even though she has destroyed their firefighting aeroplane.
Yes. But Ted is there and she like hugs him and it implies that they are then together. And then the movie just ends. And I was like, what?
Richard Dreyfuss is sort of walking off into the distance to go to hell. And then he goes, that's the rest of your life. And I wrote in my notes, I mean, I feel like at least a little of the rest of her life will be jail, right? Because she stole a plane and crashed it.
But she saved those smoke jumpers' lives or whatever.
Yeah, she saved those 6 firemen.
Yeah.
And then again, he ends with the line we teased earlier. That's my girl.
And that's my boy.
Right.
I'm just saying, like, the next 10 minutes of this movie, like, if they showed it, would just be him feverishly masturbating from a recliner in a bedroom that Ted is plowing his ex in.
Ted, harder. Ted, harder. Ted, do you want me to choke you from behind? It feels so good, Ted. Ted, when you're coming, tap out, but not before, Ted. Not before.
Oh, you guys didn't watch the post-credit scene?
Where he autoerotically asphyxiates Ted? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the only natural conclusion.
But anyway, and that's the movie. So having seen the movie, having talked about the movie, what'd you think about 1989's Steven Spielberg hit, Always?
Oof, a goof.
I liked it.
I didn't love it, but I think it was fun for me to revisit just because of my like personal history with it. But I probably wouldn't watch it again. Although I do think like John Goodman's great in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, John Goodman's great. Holly Hunter's great.
Agreed. Yeah. Anyone who does an impression, fine. You know, Ted's fine. But like the movie script isn't great, the pacing's not great, the story doesn't know what it wants to be, and Richard Dreyfuss is an asshole the whole time.
Yep.
But Paige, do you have any fun facts for us?
I do.
Well, here it is with your fun facts.
Audrey
Always
Hepburn,
fun
fun
facts.
facts. Most of the fun facts are about Audrey Hepburn, so I'll do some of them.
This was her last movie.
Yeah. If you want to know more about Audrey Hepburn, I guess go look it up.
She had a much cooler life than this movie's story.
Very much.
Yeah.
This was her final film. She was 63.
Yeah.
She only accepted the role of Hap because she wanted to work with Steven Spielberg. Also, I'll get into why the character's name is Hap in a little bit. The reason is dumb. We'll get to it.
Okay.
Audrey Hepburn was paid $1 million for her 2 scenes in this film.
For her 2 days of shooting, you
That
mean?
tracks.
I mean,
Yeah.
it almost could have shot it in a day.
Yeah, there's no question that's one day.
Yeah.
That's one day.
It's all that one location.
It was one day. That's why her costume is the same.
Love it.
And she donated her entire salary to UNICEF.
Aw.
So there's at least that.
You're welcome, blind kids.
Yeah. But Audrey Hepburn had to be carried on a stretcher by crew members when shooting her scenes to keep her clothes white.
What? Okay.
So, like, they would just carry her on a stretcher out. She would do her scenes and then they'd carry her back.
All right.
That would have probably been a weird day, huh? Where they were like,
Right?
"Oh, Audrey Hepburn's here today. Yeah, what do you? Is your first PA job? Yeah, no, it's my first gig. I'm really excited to see her work. Cool. You get to carry her out on a palanquin.
Yeah. So what we need you to do on your first day is to carry around Audrey Hepburn like she's a Roman, like, aristocracy.
Right.
Kind of like Cleopatra. You're going to carry Audrey Hepburn around like Cleopatra. We're paying her $1 million.
For this one day of work. God help me if you smell her or look directly into her eyes.
If you do look directly into her, she will kill you with her glare. So I'm just
Yes.
letting you know that's your choice.
Yeah, Mickey Rooney tried one time and now he looks like that forever. Now, Steven Spielberg originally wanted Sean Connery for that role, but Sean Connery was unavailable, so he basically opened it up to cast kind of whoever. Now, similarly, he wanted to cast either Paul Newman or Robert Redford as Pete, and like one of them is Pete and the other is Ted.
Yeah, those make sense.
Yeah.
But both of them wanted to play Pete, and he was unable to work it out between them, so they hired neither of them.
Oh my God.
So they settled for Richard Dreyfuss.
Well, there's a reason, because
Richard Dreyfuss was already on set.
Right.
pretty much, Steven Spielberg, while making Jaws, bonded with Richard Dreyfuss over quips from the original movie that this is adapted from, quote, A Guy Named Joe from 1943. Now, here's the problem. I don't know if you've seen movies from 1943. I know there are some good movies from back in that period, but screenwriting and structure, not great at the time.
No.
Not a big thing.
Movies don't know who their movie's about. They kind of just do whatever they think the audience would like in that moment. And the outliers are the ones that you remember. The ones that just kind of freewheeled it and did songs in barns, that's what most of the movies were like at this time.
Yeah.
Now, they both wanted to remake that movie. And so there's an inside joke in Poltergeist about it, but they both loved it, which is wild. But it is about a pilot. And so one of the pilots in the film is a former pilot, and it's named after Hap is named after a 5-star U.S. Air Force General Hap Arnold.
Okay.
So that's why.
Okay.
And for A Guy Named Joe, it was like a war pilot.
Yeah, so that plot actually makes sense, to be clear.
Yeah.
That plot makes sense because then you're in danger or whatever.
It also doesn't make your main character an asshole because he puts himself in danger.
Right.
Like, he's a hero who does go into danger, right?
Right, no, there is a reason for him to be a pilot.
Right.
That reason is World War II.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, it works way better in a war zone than just like a guy who's an asshole and takes risks.
Exactly. They did offer the role of Ted to Tom Cruise, and he turned it down, probably because he had just done Top Gun, and he was like, I don't need to do more of that.
I don't want to be the plane guy.
Right.
Now, the credit for screenwriting on this changes multiple times.
My turn to write a sentence, Chris.
So Diane Thomas was credited as a co-writer on the screenplay, and she's not included in the final film. There's 6 other writers. So the film credit for screenplay goes to Jerry Belson. There is a story by credit, an adaptation credit, and an original screenplay credit for A Guy Named Joe credit. And that is all already in the film. According to this, Diane Thomas was also working on it and had been working on it for Steven Spielberg when she was then tragically killed in a car accident in 1985. And so early promotional materials credited her as like a shout out, but then it didn't make it into the final film. So if you're thinking that there were way too many screenwriters and this was a hot mess, there were even more.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
And it turns out she was the lucky one.
Oh, now this movie came out at the same time, and we'll get to this a little bit in box office, as a movie that has endured as a cult classic. And this movie thought it was going to fucking bury that other movie. Any guesses as to what that movie was?
1989.
1989. Now, Spielberg also had already had Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade that year, or would have that year. Now, that was one of the highest grossing movies of the year. This was one of the lowest, but it came out the same weekend as a movie they thought they were going to absolutely destroy. I will say it's an action movie. It's a buddy cop movie.
Paige, can I take a guess? I know the other movies that came out that weekend.
Yes.
So my guess, because I did the box office research, my guess would be Tango and Cash.
It was Tango and Cash.
Tango and Cash.
Yeah.
Tango and Cash. They thought for sure, they're like, oh, we're going to come out across from this dud and we are going to win the weekend. And Tango and Cash fucking buried this movie.
Wiped the floor with them.
I can't wait to tell you. I'll give you the top 5 when we go through box office because it's going to make you laugh.
Yeah. Oh, God. Now, this is Brad Johnson, who played Ted's first theatrical release. He was in a film called Nom Angels, which was a video release, so it never hit a wide release. He would go on to be on CSI with Marga Helgenberger later.
Oh, yeah?
So that's kind of fun.
Were they love interests on that show?
I don't think so. It's been
Damn.
forever because I watched CSI religiously, but it's been so long.
Fair enough.
When Dorinda returns home in the plane, when she basically brings her cat to, the flat rock, whatever, she is dressed like Ripley from Aliens and similarly has a ginger cat. I did notice this when watching this as well as an Alien stan. The cat, however, is named Linda Blair, which I also thought was a fun name for a cat.
What a weird pull.
I know, right? I love cats with human names, though. So Cult Podcast, when we started, my original co-host, Marie, her mom has a cat named Jason Statham, and it's one of my favorites.
That's great.
And it is a big, poofy orange cat.
Linda Blair obviously is from The Exorcist. She's the lady who played the little girl in the original Exorcist.
Yes.
I just don't want to assume that people who listen to this podcast know that.
And more recently, she's in The Exorcist Believer, which I'm sure you've all watched and enjoyed.
Yes.
Right, because we talked about it together.
Yes. If you want to hear Eli do an episode of Horror Virgin and you're not a regular listener, that's the episode he was on.
That's the one.
I'm not sure how much cum I talk about on that episode, but it's less than this one.
Not much. We talk a lot more about exorcisms.
I think it's some, though.
There you go. Yeah.
I think we definitely talk about it some.
I'm never on the air without talking about cum.
It's in his writer.
Yeah. I want a bowl full of red M&Ms and a bowl full of cum.
You know how long it took me to build up to a bowl full, guys?
Yeah, you got to milk those roadies dry.
Why does this smell like American spirits?
That was the day I learned the benefit of middle out.
Oh. So Smoke Gets in Your Eyes, their song, is also featured in another Richard Dreyfuss film, American Graffiti. There's definitely nothing problematic in that one, right? Wink.
Nope, it's great. It's a great film. No notes.
Now, this was not the only remake of A Guy Named Joe. So MGM originally wanted to remake it in the 1970s, but later got picked up by Universal, who ultimately then partnered with United Artists to then do this version. So studios independently wanted to remake it. Spielberg wanted to remake it. And this was a bunch of people who were like, we all love this movie that very few people have heard of, I would assume. This was my first time hearing about it. And they all decided to come together and remake it.
I wonder if this is going to be like the kids in 20 years fighting over remaking a Equilibrium or some movie that wasn't that famous, but a lot of film nerds know about,
We're going to do a remake of Gattaca.
Exactly.
Yes!
Yeah. Honestly, yes.
Oh man, I'm trying to think of what other films would fall into that category, because it has to be something that
Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
No, too famous. People love that movie.
Yeah, that's probably too famous. You're right. That's why Equilibrium was that I think sweet spot of everyone I know knows that movie, but no one I know went and saw it in theaters.
True.
Gun Fu? Gun
Fu? Gun Kata.
I unironically love the bonkersness of that movie.
It's incredible. It's fucking the straight-facedness of Equilibrium is phenomenal.
They take it so seriously that it makes it a comedy. It makes it a comedy.
It's the face tattoos of films.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
Now, as for this movie, John Goodman was almost not in this movie.
That would have been a shame.
I know, because he's the best part of it.
I know.
He was also filming Roseanne, Stella, Arachnophobia, and Sea of Love at the same time.
Hell yeah, John.
But he desperately wanted to work with Steven Spielberg because it's fucking Spielberg in the 80s, right?
Of course.
And so Steven Spielberg fought to make the scheduling work for John Goodman.
Amazing.
They had done something similar a few years earlier for Michael J. Fox for Back to the Future.
Yeah.
Because he was also filming Family Ties. And the studio was like not super on board because they were like, why are you fighting for John Goodman so hard? But it was Spielberg, and so they had to give him anything he wanted.
Yeah, why don't we just cast Eric Stoltz or whatever?
Yeah, why don't we just cast Eric Stoltz? But Spielberg fought for him, which is ultimately how he ends up in Arachnophobia and The Flintstones later. He would also go on to work with Holly Hunter in a bunch of Coen Brothers movies, which are way better than this.
Yeah.
Go watch those instead.
Yeah.
I would say equal.
Equal? I'll end on this one just because it's fun.
Right.
So John Goodman's character at one point in the movie tries to avoid paying for 2 beers by evading Richard Dreyfuss's bet that he's going to tell him what the base reminds him of. Moments later, he's forced to pay for the beers anyway because he can't stop from saying it. Quote, the base reminds him of the war in Europe, a war he was never in. This ends up being a callback in The Big Lebowski, where he can't stop talking about Nam, which again, he was never in. I think it's parallel thinking. I don't think that they're necessarily referencing each other, but it's fun that it's the same actor.
Cinematic universe.
I love it. Honestly, if they're the same character, he just like retired from Flat Rock and is now like bowling with his friends.
Yes.
That's my HC. From now on, that's my HC.
I love it.
There you go.
Oh, man.
And those are your fun facts.
Well, thank you for those fun facts, Paige. Let's talk a little bit about box office. But before we do, I have a question. If you were a pilot that did this kind of work, what would your plane be named?
Ooh, the Burning Bush.
Ooh.
I love that. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm going to go with Take My Load.
Oh, I was going to go with Drop and Load.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Well, let's talk a little bit about box office. So what do you think its production budget was, guys?
26.
Okay.
This was expensive.
It's Spielberg in the 80s where he was like hit after hit after hit.
Audrey Hepburn got paid $1 million for being on set for one day.
Yes.
I'm going to say this is 42.
Okay, Paige, you're on either side of it.
Okay.
Eli, technically you're closer, and by Price is Right rules, Paige is out anyway, so you win.
Damn.
But the budget was $30 million, and then they hired Audrey Hepburn, and it upped it to $31 million,
31.
which is what it was. And I guarantee you that's what it was. The studio was like, you have $30 million, Steve, have fun. And he was like, I can get Hepburn for $1 million more. And they were like, fucking fine.
Yep.
Fine, but she better be in a lot of the movie.
As long as she can't act anymore after this. And if she does, we have to murder her.
She has to give up acting forever.
Yes, yeah. Anyway, so if you adjust for inflation, that's like an $80 million movie today. It's $79.4 million technically, but still. This movie came out the weekend of December 22nd, 1989. It was 5th in the theaters that weekend. Number 1 was National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. It had been in theaters for 4 weeks and I believe had not yet been not number 1 in the box office for those first 4 weeks. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, it's fucking Christmas.
Actually, I just looked it up. For the first 2 weeks, it was number 2. Then it went to number 1. Interesting.
All right. Earned it.
But right below that was Tango and Cash, which is the movie that they thought they were going to blow out of the water. But it's Kurt Russell, so of course they weren't.
I'd blow Kurt Russell out of any water he needed me to.
I am sure. Eli?
That's right. Yep. 100%. I'll eat that cum right out of Paige's pussy.
Well, okay. Maybe I might have something to say about that.
Sorry, I'm trying to be a team player. I'm trying to yes and. Look, Kurt has rules, Paige.
Look, I'm pretty sure my husband would give me a hall pass for Kurt Russell, but not for you.
Not for podcaster Eli Bosnick. You're like, is he the tall one? No, he's the other. He's the
other
less
one.
funny
The other
one.
one.
He's the one that you would like assume would be a sex weirdo.
He's the one who's asking this.
Number 3 was War of the Roses. Number 4 was Back to the Future Part 2. And number 5 was Always. What do you think Always brought in its opening weekend?
8.
Okay.
Yeah, I was right around I was going to say 9.
Guys, it was $3.7 million. This movie bombed pretty hard, guys. Okay, so the next weekend it actually made more money, but dropped a little bit in the box office rankings because it was number 6 that weekend. But it brought in $7.1 million that weekend. It was a weird weekend. Honestly, War of the Roses went up to number 1. Like, maybe it was just the 80s, and maybe it's the way the movies are advertised, but like it was more common to see them jump around than it was to like start at number 1 and then slowly trickle off like it is more commonly now. Because in its in its 3rd week, it was 4th in the box office. It was weird. Anyway, so what do you think the movie brought in domestically when it was in theaters in 1989, early 1990?
15.
Okay.
I'm going to say 12.
Okay, it actually did go on to make money. So it brought in $41.8 million.
That's way more than I expected. It's because it was in theaters a lot longer, probably.
Still in theaters today.
And also, like, it's Steven Spielberg. I'm sure it was marketed as a Steven Spielberg movie. There's tons of famous people at the time in it. I bet people went and saw it because they were like, oh, I love John Goodman. Or Steven Spielberg's great. Let's go check out his new thing.
Right.
And it wasn't their favorite, you know? So I'm sure it made money on the strength of that.
Yeah,
right.
1989. What are you going to do? Go on the internet and read that it's bad? No, you fucking, the only way to find out.
Right.
There were 2 white guys on TV who would occasionally warn you a movie was bad.
In snarky, let's just say New Jersey, New York style ways.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
In the manner of my people, if you will.
I will say this, it also made $30.3 million internationally. So this movie did make $72 million when it was in theaters worldwide. So it did make a decent amount of money. Not what Spielberg normally makes.
Sure.
Because his movies are normally way better than this. But that still would be like $184 million today, which is not bad on a, $31 million budget to make 72, I guess. That's fine. But that's your box office. So, Paige, you want to hit us with that romance scale?
Sure. Our romance scale is a scale of 1 to 4 of how romantic we found this movie today, sharing cum notwithstanding. Eli, what are you going to give it?
Well, now that you've eliminated sharing cum, I've got to give it a 2. But if they had, it would have been all the way up to a 4.
I'm going to give it a 1.
I'm going to give it a 1 as well. I didn't find it really romantic.
Yeah.
But I really do think John Goodman loves her at the end of the movie. So we got that.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I want that love story. Give John Goodman a love story.
I know, right?
He's so good. Anyway, that's your romance scale.
Yeah. So, Eli, thank you so much for guesting on our podcast.
Thanks for having me.
We love having you on. We should do this more frequently. And I'd love for you to tell people where they can find more of the awesome stuff that you do.
Yes.
I'm a huge fan of your show. I was like so thrilled we got to go on it and do
Yeah, I was so excited to have you on, and people have been begging to have you back, so we got to have you guys back soon.
Yes.
We'd love to.
Yeah, our show is called God Awful Movies.
Yeah.
We have reviewed over 500 Christian films, and truly they are all terrible. They are all awful as the moniker deserves. You can find God Awful Movies wherever you get your podcasts.
Literally everywhere, guys. And do find it because it's great. So this week, Paige, I made you guys watch Always, and honestly, I'll never forget myself. But next week, I feel like I will redeem myself with a movie that was actually written and directed by the guy who brought us Gattaca.
Great.
About Al Pacino falling in love, maybe with a simulation. Anyway,
Great.
I'm going to make you guys watch Simone. It's also sometimes pronounced Sim1 because of the way it's spelled, but
I've only ever heard Simone, so great.
yeah, I've heard it both ways, which is weird because it should just be Simone. But like the reason I think people do that is because the way the poster is S1 Moan, M-O-N-E.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like Sim, but the I is a 1, I guess.
Yeah.
1, yeah. Anyway, so that's the one. It is from 2002. And guys, you're going to love it.
I'm excited.
Yeah, so that's your homework for next week.
Todd, do you have any reviews for us?
I do. So this week, I'm going to read some comments from our most recent Spotify episode, and that was I Can Do Bad All By Myself. And a lot of the comments were making fun of us because we did not know that Madea and Dadia were actually just siblings.
Or brother and sister.
Yeah.
We found out in the Facebook group the next day.
Yeah, we got yelled at a lot about that this past week.
That's okay. The next time we do a Medea movie, we will know.
I still think I'm going to call them Madea and Dadia because that's funny to me, but whatever, that's fine. Let's see if I can find one that doesn't talk about that. So this week, I'm going to read a comment from K-pop the cat, not K-pop the person, or what is that, Portugal the man or whatever? This is K-pop the cat. Anyway, they mentioned something that we mentioned in the episode. They say, shout out to the organization Comfort Cases. This organization ensures that kids in foster care don't carry their stuff in a trash bag. They get a backpack with essentials and to carry their stuff in. And their website is comfortcases.org. So guys, check that out. And K-pop the cat, thanks for plugging it.
Yay.
I forgot that we mentioned that, so that's great.
Yes.
And if you want to have me read your 5-star Apple review and or Spotify comment, leave one of those things and I will do just that. So yeah, if you guys like this show and want to hear our other show where we talk about horror movies, that is The Horror Virgin. That's the only other podcast I am on, but Paige is also on Cult Podcast, which you can find at Cult Podcast. And you can find us on social media. I am at Todd J. Awesome, literally everywhere. Paige is at Paige Wesley on Instagram.
No, it's at Rampage Wesley on Instagram and TikTok, at Paige Wesley on Twitter.
That's right. All right. So that's where you can find Paige. If you want to find the show, we are at Romancing the Pod Show, right?
Yep. Romancing Pod Show on Twitter.
Well, and Instagram, right?
And Instagram, but it's show SHO because character limits. If you start typing Romancing the Pod, it'll come up.
It'll definitely come up on Instagram. I don't know about Twitter because I haven't posted on Twitter in a hot ass minute. So like, who knows? But that is where you can find more of us. So yeah, guys, give us a follow. Support the show any way you can. We'd love it.
Smash that like button.
Hell yeah.
And that's going to be it for us, you guys. I'm Paige.
And I'm Todd.
And you complete us to plain pleation.
Plain pleation. I love that. That's great. Bye. Everyone in this movie kind of has a death wish. Nerds.
La 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 la.